Carolina. Coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400. The seventh stop on the play a part in today's race.
Yes, it could, Bob, particularly in the early part of the race, because they didn't get any practice after they qualified, and normally they will make adjustments for the car for running in race traffic, plus the fact that it washed all the rubber off the track that they had put on during qualifying Friday and Saturday.
A new face covering the pit area for us this afternoon. Let's go down to Ron Kendrick.
Thank you, Bob. It'll be close quarters here on pit road when the cars come in for their stops. Whether that stop is scheduled or unscheduled, we'll be here to tell you why they made that stop. And if the driver should happen to fall out of competition, we'll get them here to tell you what happened to their car. We're with Tim Richmond. He'll be starting in the 10th row. Tim, your comments on the race?
Well, it's a long one. It's a nice day. It's going to be cool for us. And for us, we're starting back here in the 10th row, I believe. And, we're just going to watch for some of the trouble at the start of the race and stay out of trouble the whole race, because it's a long one, and there's a lot of things that go on that, like the wall comes up at you pretty quick, and people happen to get into it, and there's a lot of problems. So we're just going to try to stay out of that and hopefully be there at the end.
Good luck to you, Tim. Tim Richmond starting the Stacy Pack Buick on the 10th row.
As we look at the brushy mountains, we'll take this break and be back for our live coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400.
Got to be a little bit crazy, riding on a short track. Don't you ever look back and find yourself a pushing.
Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, and Ron Kendrick back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. The weather is completely different than yesterday. Today, 69 degrees. We have a 15-mile-an-hour wind and not a cloud in the sky. It is beautiful. This racetrack is 5/8 of a mile in length. The curves are banked at 14 degrees, and the unusual thing about this racetrack is you actually drive downhill on the front straightaway by 11 feet, while on the back straightaway you're driving uphill by 11 feet. And Ned Jarrett and I will be talking more about that in just a few minutes. The North Wilkesboro Speedway ready for the Northwestern Bank 400. Here now is the starting lineup for today's event. In the front row, driving the Mountain Dew Buick from Franklin, Tennessee, car number 11, Darrell Waltrip, alongside Harry Gant in car 33 in the 711 Skoll Bandit Buick. Second row, Terry Labonte from Corpus Christi, Texas, in the Stacy Chevrolet, and Mark Martin, car 02 from North Liberty, Indiana, in the Apache Stowe Pontiac. Third row, Bobby Allison in the Gatorade Chevrolet from Hueytown, Alabama. Ron Bouchard in 47 from Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, in the Stacy Buick. Row number 4 for this afternoon's race, Ricky Rudd in car 3 from Chesapeake, Virginia, in the Piedmont Pontiac, and Joe Ruttman in 75 from Upland, California, in the Raymock Racing Buick. In the fifth row, Dave Marcus from Wausau, Wisconsin, in the Stacy Chevrolet, and Benny Parsons in car 28 in the Stacy Pontiac. In row number 6, Neil Bonnet, car 37 from Hueytown, Alabama, the Rogers Racing Buick, and Jeff Bodine in car 50, the Perfection Connection Pontiac. In row number 7, Lake Speed from Jackson, Mississippi, in the Yazoo Buick. Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, in the Wrangler Jeans Ford. Row number 8, Butch Lindley in car 01 from Greenville, South Carolina, in the GT Racing Buick, and Morgan Shepherd in car 98 from Conover, North Carolina, in the Levi Garrett Buick. In row number 9, Tim Richmond from Ashland, Ohio, in the Stacy Pack Buick, and Jody Ridley in car 90 from Chatsworth, Georgia, in the Stacy Ford. And in row number 10, the Pettys. On the inside in car 43, Richard Petty in the STP Pontiac, and Kyle Petty alongside his son, car 42, also in the STP Pontiac, both drivers, of course, from Randall, North Carolina. Here is the remainder of the starting lineup. In the 11th row, car 26, Brad Teague from Johnson City, Tennessee, in the Food Country USA Chevy. Buddy Arrington, car 67 from Martinsville, Virginia, in the Hills Racing Dodge. In the 12th row, Jimmy Means in the Broadway Motors Buick, and J.D. McDuffie in the Max Stores Pontiac. 13th row, car 24, Lenny Pond in the Forklift Buick, and Slick Johnson the Valentine Pontiac. 14th row, D.K. Ulrich in the Old Milwaukee Light Buick, and Bob Shack in the Test Tube Oldsmobile. And finally, the 15th row, Bobby Hillen, 17 years old, in the Hillen Drilling Buick, and Ronnie Thomas in the Thomas Racing Pontiac. There have been only 3 drivers in NASCAR history to start at the age of 17, and Bobby Hillen Jr. is one of them. The other 2, Cale Yarborough and Richie Panch. The pace car pulls off of the track. The cars come down the main straightaway anticipating a green, and the green is out. We are racing. The Northwestern Bank 400 is underway.
And Darrell Waltrip quickly gets into the lead, but here's Harry Gant trying to move up on the inside, but Waltrip pulls away to move into turn 3.
And Waltrip got off to an edge there as they cross the starting line, but he has his rear view mirror full battle of Harry Gant as they come down to complete lap number 1. Terry Labonte running in 3rd place. Mark Martin is 4th. Ron Bouchard running in 5th position. And 6th is Bobby Allison. The cars all moving smoothly through turn numbers 1 and 2. It appears as we look back into the fact that all cars are running rather well at this time. They're being led by Darrell Waltrip in the number 11 Mountain Dew Buick. Here he is completing lap number 2. Still Harry Gant running in 2nd position and Terry Labonte right on Gant's tail in number 3. Gant looks to the inside coming off of turn number 2 down the backstretch. Cannot make a move and settles back into the 2nd position.
Bob, this is not one of the easiest racetracks to pass on. Early in the race especially, it's sort of a one-groove track. You'll notice that you're running very low in the turns. The groove will move up as the afternoon goes on, as the track gets a little slick on the bottom side, as they lose a little oil and water and get some rubber on the track. But it's very tough to pass on, particularly early.
Basically a 3-car battle here. There's about 2 car lengths between the 3rd place car of Terry Labonte, number 44, and Mark Martin, who is now running in 4th position.
Here's Dave Marcus making a move on Benny Parsons, moves to car number 71 around Parsons' 28 car.
Dave Marcus, of course, was the winner of the most recent live telecast that we did at Richmond, Virginia. Dave Marcus in the number 71 J.D. Stacy Chevrolet. Benny Parsons right on his tail, though, in the number 28 car as they come down the straightaway and complete another lap.
That battle is for 8th position. We see Marcus in the 71 and Parsons in the 28. They're 2 of the favorites here today in this race, even though they're back in the field a little bit right now.
Still, Darrell Waltrip continues to be your leader with Harry Gant running in 2nd position. Terry Labonte is 3rd. 4th is now Bobby Allison, who's beginning to move up a little bit. He's gotten around Mark Martin. Martin is running in 5th position. Then a little bit of a interval before we get back to the 6th place car, which is being driven by Ron Bouchard. 7th is Ricky Rudd. 8th is that battle between Dave Marcus and Benny Parsons. And running in 10th position at this time is Joe Ruttman, who has moved from the Stacy stable to the Raymock stable. He's driving the car number 75 that has been previously driven this year by Gary Ballou. Down the backstretch, headed into turn number 3. Now Darrell Waltrip with about a 6 or 7 car length lead on Harry Gant, with Terry Labonte right on Gant's tail in 3rd position.
Bob, you know they have a unique qualifying system here at North Wilkesboro. It took 2 days of running to actually determine the pole position winner. On Friday, during the first qualifying run, here's the battle for 6th and 7th position. Ron Bouchard in car 47 and Ricky Rudd in car number 3. But on Friday, Terry Labonte had the fastest time, and Waltrip was in the 4th position, or 5th position it was, but he came back and turned a tremendous lap yesterday, so when they took the average of 2, it put him up front.
Now this battle for 6th place, then, we are beginning to see a 2-groove racetrack already as Ricky Rudd has moved high on the racetrack in an attempt to pass Ron Bouchard for 6th position. He does so on the backstretch going into turn number 3. So Ron Bouchard running in 7th position now and in 6th. Oh, and Dale Earnhardt is in trouble. Dale Earnhardt, problems in turn number 3, spinning that car. However, he was able to keep the power, and he is still out there. We do have a yellow, however. So the yellow comes out for the first time on lap number 10 for a spin involving Dale Earnhardt in turn number 3.
Earnhardt has been one of the fastest drivers and cars on the circuit this year. Here he is coming into the 3rd turn. Earnhardt tried to get on the inside of Joe Ruttman, got the left wheels down on a little curbing there, simply threw his car out of control, and he spins it around. And Bob, he was a lucky fellow there with all the traffic behind him, and he's sitting in the center groove that someone didn't plow into it.
Well, we talked to Dale Earnhardt a little bit earlier today about this racetrack and the fact that it's a short track.
I don't mind getting there and rubbing a little paint and racing, but as long as it don't get too serious and get to banging, you know. But you'll rub a little paint here and get real close and race real close here.
We've seen a lot of tempers flare at this racetrack.
I guarantee you, about halfway through the race and on, you know, everybody's hot and tired and they're running the hard as they can go, trying to finish the race. And if you get to bumping along, then it gets pretty, tempers are short, you know, it's easy to lose your temper that quick.
Well, Dale Earnhardt was the first to trade paint this afternoon with Joe Ruttman, and he is now in the pit area for a tire change. We are under our first caution of the afternoon. 10 laps completed. Darrell Waltrip is running in the lead with Harry Gant running in 2nd and Terry Labonte 3rd. We'll be back in a moment. Our first caution of the afternoon brought out by Dale Earnhardt. He's making another pit stop. Let's go down to Ron Kendrick.
Dale Earnhardt has been in the pits 4 times now. They have problems under the front side of the car. They're trying to bend the spoiler back into shape. There's also something hanging underneath it. They've changed all 4 tires, and they've topped him off with fuel. With the short track, they have to get him out before the car so he doesn't get a lap down.
And he has managed to stay on the same lap, I believe, despite the fact that he's been in 4 or 5 times. So Ned, problems with that car early.
Yes, when he got on his left wheel on the curbing coming into the turn trying to pass Joe Rutman, it bent that spoiler back, and sometimes a jolt of that sort can actually foul up the steering. They've looked at that. I don't think that that is a problem, but as Ron Kendrick pointed out, that spoiler was bent. We saw them banging on it. Apparently they don't think they have it fixed yet because he's right back in the pits again. Bud Moore and the rest of the crew going to work on that front end again, and they're working on that front spoiler. And that is very important, even on a short track. Back when I was racing 15 years ago, we didn't even know what a spoiler was. But now it's a very important part of a race car because it has to do with the airflow into the engine as well as the airflow around and across the body. But he's back out again and still didn't lose a lap.
Well, you normally think of aerodynamics on the super speedways where they're drafting and traveling at speeds near 200 miles an hour, but certainly the aerodynamics do play in effect even on a short racetrack. Ron Bouchard in car number 47 is running in the top 10. He had a problem, I guess, after the practice session yesterday because they changed the engine in that car earlier today. And perhaps Ron Kendrick can have a further explanation of that work earlier today from the pits. Ron?
So, Bob, about the noon hour, they weren't changing the engine on the Bouchard car. I checked with them. Basically what that was a change from a qualifying engine, changing from a qualifying engine to the race engine. They had not had time to do that. Actually, no problem.
As we watch Dale Earnhardt once again pull out of the pit area, we remain under a yellow, and we have been given the indication by the NASCAR officials. Harold Kinder, the starter, has told the drivers that next time around they will get the green flag and will be back to racing. The 10-lap rundown showed Darrell Waltrip in the lead with Cant second, Terry Labonte third. Fourth was Bobby Allison. Fifth, Mark Martin. Sixth was the number 3 car of Ricky Rudd. In 7th position, Ron Bouchard. 8th, Benny Parsons. 9th, Dave Marcus. And 10th was Joe Rutman. The pace car pulls out ahead of Darrell Waltrip and the rest of the field and will be coming into the pit area now as Waltrip and the others get on the accelerator coming off of turn number 4 and go back to racing. Here's the green flag. We're racing once again. Now we'll be watching Dale Earnhardt to see if he does have problems with that car as far as handling is concerned or whether he's able to move up through the traffic.
He has a long way to go, Bob, starting at the back of the 30-car field now. He's already picking some of them off while Harry Gant is trying to make his way around to Darrell Waltrip. But Waltrip's car seems to be handling so well on the inside of the racetrack that he just simply is not giving Gant any room at all to run. We saw Ricky Rudd pass a little bit earlier on the outside, but that's going to be awfully tough for him to do at the speed that Waltrip is running. And he is taking up the right part of the racetrack where it's the fastest right now. But I'll tell you a car we got to watch. It's the 4th one on the screen there, the green car of Bobby Allison, the car number 88. That car looked awfully strong in practice and qualifying. He's already moved from 5th up to 4th now, and Allison drives this track as well as anyone. He'll be a factor before this day's over.
We're watching the battle for 8th position involving Benny Parsons, the number 28 car, and Dave Marcus in 71. Parsons is trying to position himself around Ron Bouchard in the 47. Parsons moving to the inside, coming off of turn number 4 here. Benny Parsons racing side by side with Ron Bouchard into turn number 1. A good battle here, side by side on a virtually one-groove racetrack off of turn number 2 onto the backstretch. And Benny Parsons is able to pass Ron Bouchard. And so Benny Parsons moves himself into 7th position. Benny Parsons running 7th. Bouchard is 8th, and he is getting a challenge from Dave Marcus in the 71. He is moving to the inside and trying to challenge Ron Bouchard. So Bouchard is beginning to drop back a few positions here.
There are so many cars in this field that are capable of winning, Bob. There has to be at least 15 cars. Jody Ridley, car number 90, just made an unscheduled pit stop while Dale Earnhardt was making his pit stops a moment ago. Ridley came in. They did some work on the right front of the car and changed the right side tires. He's back out there now, but he had to make that unscheduled pit stop under the green, so he's at least a lap down.
Here is the leader once again, Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee in the Mountain Dew Buick. Darrell has won 2 races already this year on the Grand National Tour in Bristol and Atlanta. Let's go to this battle back in the pack involving Mark Martin, Ricky Rudd, and Benny Parsons. This is the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th position.
And quite a battle it is. Parsons moves on the inside of Ricky Rudd, trying to take over the 5th position as they move into the first turn. He's got the inside of the track, and right now that seems to be the fastest part of the racetrack. But Rudd hanging tight on the outside.
Good battle here between Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd down into turn number 3 in that area where Dale Earnhardt had a problem a few laps ago, but no problems for Benny Parsons as he brings the car off of the 4th turn. Now running virtually side by side with Ricky Rudd while Mark Martin shows the way in 5th. That Parsons would like to take over that position. He first has to deal, however, with Ricky Rudd in the car number 3, the Piedmont Airlines Pontiac. Again, side by side in turns 3 and 4. Here they come to complete another lap. It is Benny Parsons still running side by side with Ricky Rudd. The first 4 cars are pretty much strung out with Waltrip, Gant, Labonte, and Bobby Allison running 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5th position here, Mark Martin in the 0-2, and this tremendous battle between Parsons and Ricky Rudd.
And that is tight competition, Bob. Parsons is really a local favorite here. He was born and raised in Wilkes County, North Carolina. A lot of his relatives still live in this area, and so a lot of them come out to watch him here. This is one of the tracks that he sort of calls his home track. Of course, he's there. He gets around Rudd. Finally, Rudd either backed off or then he had a certain sudden spurt of speed there and moved him around. Now he has Mark Martin up there, who is a tough customer on this kind of a racetrack.
Well, Mark Martin, of course, look, the 2 drivers in the field today who have indicated they want Rookie of the Year status. Mark Martin won a pole position in the Grand National race last year in Nashville, Tennessee, is a short track veteran, but he is passed by Benny Parsons. Parsons moves into 5th place. Now it is Ricky Rudd trying to get around Mark Martin, and so is Ron Bouchard. Ricky Rudd does move around, and it looks like there could have been some contact between Ricky Rudd and Mark Martin there in turn number 4 coming onto the straightaway.
They absolutely did change some paint there. If you look on either of those cars, you see a different color. One on the right side and one on the left side, but that's typical of NASCAR Grand National races on a 5/8 mile speedway.
6th position belongs to Benny Parsons. Running first, still Darrell Waltrip. 2nd is Terry Labonte. In 3rd position is Harry Gant. And 4th position at this time is Bobby Allison. We have completed 35 laps. We're covering for you the Northwestern Bank 400. Back in a moment. Well, we'll present for you live coverage for the 3rd consecutive year, the ESPN NFL Collegiate Draft, the most important off-season football event. We'll discover who will be the #1 pick this year. Our coverage includes features on more than 50 top college players, expert analysis of today's event, and reports from sites around the country. That's Tuesday, April 27th at 9:30 a.m. live on ESPN. The Northwestern Bank 400 continues, and we watch this battle here between Dave Marcus and Joe Ruttman. Dave Marcus just passed Ruttman a few laps ago. And also in this battle is Richard Petty in the number 43 car. So we'll watch this for a few laps as Darrell Waltrip continues to be your leader.
And Ruttman and Marcus get together. Ruttman almost lost the 75, but he gathered it back in. Here comes Jeff Bodine in the car 50. He goes out of the picture now, and Petty moves to the inside of Ruttman. Puts a little sheet metal up there, swaps a little paint. And Petty now coming into the picture. He's had more success on this speedway than any other driver.
As a matter of fact, his success is phenomenal here. He has finished either 1st or 2nd in this race the last 12 years. And he would like very much to keep that record intact today with a win. Richard Petty in the number 43 STP Pontiac.
That car is working well on the inside of the track, Bob, and that's what it takes here. And that's one thing that has allowed Richard Petty to have as much success as he has over the years. He knows how to make the car handle. Now, he's not too good of a qualifier on this racetrack. In fact, I think during those 12 years, he has never sat on the pole. But when the race gets going and the track gets a little bit slicker, he is tough to contend with, and we're seeing him make his moves already.
He is running in 10th position at this time, and he is about to move around Bobby Hillen Jr. in the number 8 car there. As we indicated earlier, Bobby Hillen is only 17 years of age and making his first Grand National start this afternoon. So Richard Petty running in 10th place right now, the number 43. Dave Marcus is in 11th position. The leader, meanwhile, Darrell Waltrip, has begun to lap some of the slower cars. Here he is in turn number 4, moving off of the turn onto the straightaway and about to put a lap on Jody Ridley. Right ahead of Ridley is Bob Shack in the number 97 car.
The 24 car he just passed was Lingy Pond, and now he moves on the outside of Ridley, and that put Ridley at least 2 laps down because he made an unscheduled pit stop not too long ago. So Ridley having his problems here today.
Jody Ridley did make a pit stop during that yellow that we had for the Dale Earnhardt spin, and he is now a lap down as Dale Waltrip moves to the outside and puts a lap on Bob Shack from Lombard, Illinois, in the number 97 test tube Oldsmobile. Altitude Buick continues to lead our Northwestern Bank 400, driven by Darrell Waltrip. Still running in second position at this time is Harry Gant, and Terry Labonte has moved around Harry Gant in just the last few laps. So Terry Labonte is now running in second position with Harry Gant running third. Dale Earnhardt, we speculated might have corrected his problems, has moved into 13th position. So he has passed a lot of cars since that spin.
He certainly has, Bob, and apparently did not affect the handling qualities of that car number 15. He's a tremendous short track driver and one of the most aggressive drivers on the circuit. Let's go to Ron Hendrick. He has Bud Moore, who's the car owner of the 15.
One more says, but Dale had an awful lot of problems. How's he handling now, and is everything will be okay?
Well, I think as we get the front spoiler adjusted a little bit more, hope to slack out now, we'll see.
Okay.
And we have a crash up in turn number 2. One of the cars involved was Butch Lindley. The number 01 car also involved Lake Speed in the number 17 Yazoo Mowers car. That problem occurred up there in turn number 2 while we were talking with Bud Moore. We have a replay of it.
It looks like they tangled Lindley and Speed as they went into the turn. Speed spinning down to the inside. Lindley was able to keep his car straight. He drove it up on the outside of the racetrack, and he came on around. So it's not too much of a problem there. Here's the leader in the pits, Darrell Waltrip, taking advantage of this caution period. The Junior Johnson crew going to work on it, and here's Bobby Allison, who was running in the 4th position in the Gatorade car. They're changing the right side tires, filling them up with gasoline, and you can see one of the crew members making an adjustment on the chassis of that car, and the way that he's turning that screw, Bob, indicates that the car was a little bit loose. The left rear wheel was not getting the traction that it needed. Waltrip is away now in the car number 11. They changed all 4 tires on the left.
So the first pit stops of the afternoon have been completed by all of the leaders, including Darrell Waltrip. Was this about the time that they normally would have come in without this yellow?
No, this is much earlier than they normally would. In fact, they can go about 140 laps. As far as fuel is concerned, here's Dale Earnhardt back in the pit. Here's Richard Petty in the car number 43 in for a change of right side tires. But they can go about 140 miles, or 140 laps, I should say, on a tank of fuel. Both of the Petty cars in the pits getting right side tires and, of course, a tank of gasoline. Harry Gant in the Skull Bandit car getting left side tires. So is Benny Parsons. You can see his car there on the left part of the picture. He's then taking advantage of this caution period too. But Bob, they use this caution period. They give it an opportunity to look at the tires after they take them off and see how they are wearing, and then make any chassis adjustments that they might need to make.
Bobby Allison and the others are back out of the racetrack. We are under our second yellow of the afternoon, but racing will resume in just a moment, and we'll be back for it.
What's more natural than natural light? When the feast grows.
Back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, we had a chance earlier to talk with Darrell Waltrip, who is leading the race at this time, about going for another Winston Cup this year.
Well, we're really in better shape than you might expect. It's like last week at Darlington, we finished 22nd or 3rd and moved up a position in the points, and that's kind of hard to do. So we're in 4th and only 140 points out of 1st place, and that's a lot better than we were this time last year. Even though we're having problems, we're still relatively close, so we're not concerned yet. We would like to get on track here and start finishing a little better than we have lately, though. We've had a couple.
The green flag is back out, and Darrell Waltrip stands on the button and pulls out ahead of the rest of the field. Harry Gant is running in 2nd position, but he is the 3rd car behind Darrell Waltrip. Cars come down to complete lap number 53. Gant running in 2nd position with Terry Labonte in 3rd. Running 4th is Bobby Allison. In 5th position, Benny Parsons. 6th is Richard Petty. And 7th position at this time, I believe, would be Joe Rutland. Off of turn number 4, here is Darrell Waltrip. Darrell's performance so far this year, he finished 20th in the Daytona 500, 27th at Richmond. He won Bristol, he won Atlanta, he finished 7th in Rockingham, and he finished 23rd at Darlington. The battle here involving the Gatorade car driven by Bobby Allison and Ricky Rudd in car number 3. They have in front of them Jody Ridley in the 90 car, who has already been lapped. And they are trying to put another lap on Jody Ridley, and Bobby Allison trying to get to the inside, unable to do so. Meanwhile, Ricky Rudd moves to the outside of Bobby Allison in an attempt to pass, but neither car can pull off the pass, so they settle back in their respective positions. Now it looks like Allison bumping Ridley as they come off of turn number 4, trying to get Jody out of the way. Here on the front stretch, we'll see if Allison can pass in turn number 1. He does.
I think you got the message that time, Bob.
A little extra verbal communication there as Ridley tried to stay ahead of those cars, but finally moved over and allowed Allison to get by, Ricky Rudd to get by. Now Benny Parsons has also passed, and so has Richard Petty.
Now let's remember that they made a chassis adjustment on Bobby Allison's car number 88. We'll see how it affects it. He's a very sharp individual on the chassis of an automobile. He knows what it means. So I'm sure that he communicated with his crew, told them what to do to it. They did it, so we'll see how it will work out.
Good race for second position, and that involves Terry Labonte and Harry Gant, who have been going at it from most of this race so far. Labonte in the number 44 car to the inside, that's the Stacy Chevrolet, and Harry Gant to the outside in the Skoll Bandit Buick. So good side-by-side racing here for second position, and it looks like that Terry Labonte will be scored in second position on that lap, which was 59. By the way, Terry Labonte was on the pole after the first day of qualifying. However, the fastest 8 cars have to average their 2 qualifying days, Friday and Saturday, and that's the reason that he did not start on the pole today. Waltrip had a much better qualifying session yesterday that allowed him to move into the pole position. Terry Labonte, who, by the way, is the current leader in the 1982 Winston Cup standings at this point. He hasn't won a race this year, but he has finished very consistently. That has led to his being in first position at this time in the Winston Cup standings. Right behind him, Harry Gant in the number 33 Skoll Bandit Buick.
You can see Gant really twisting that steering wheel as it came off of turn 4, and as this afternoon goes on, that turn gets very slick as they lose a little water, grease, and oil, and mixed with the rubber they put down on the track, it really makes it slick. Here's a good 3-car battle between Benny Parsons on the inside of Ricky Rudd. He takes that position away, and here's Richard Petty coming in the STP car, number 43.
Well, all kinds of racing here. The first 3 cars are pretty much strung out, but then we get back to fourth position, the position that Bobby Allison holds. Then everybody is jogging for position here. Bobby Allison ahead of Benny Parsons. Then comes Richard Petty. Then comes Ricky Rudd moving off of the 4th turn. The car up high, the 01 car, is a lap car. That's being driven by Butch Lindley, one of those who spun earlier today. Let's go back down for another report from the pit area. Ron Kendrick.
We're with Gary Nelson, crew chief on Bobby Allison's Gatorade car. How's the car running for Bobby?
Well, the car's running a little bit loose right now. We made an adjustment on the last stop. We're a little better, but not quite as good as we wish we were.
What's he reporting about track conditions?
Well, the track has gotten looser than we thought it was going to. Kind of a surprise. We thought it would stay tight. We're adjusting for it now. I think we'll get it right in a few more stops.
Okay, Gary Nelson, crew chief on Bobby Allison's Gatorade Racing Team.
And Bobby Allison running in 4th position at this time, but being challenged by Benny Parsons. So the battle here for 4th place, Bobby Allison and Benny Parsons. Cars out on the backstretch, still running nose to tail as Butch Lindley in the car 01 moves into the pit area for some more maintenance, and Ned the Hood going up on that car indicating some serious problems.
Yes, the car was not running up to Butch's expectations. We see Dave Marcus also going down pit road and unscheduled pits. That's the Marcus. He'll pull in right beside of where Lindley is, but that's a bad sign when they have to pull the hood up. Here's that battle between Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison. Parsons now going on the outside, which is the long way around, and Allison battling down on the inside. Richard Petty almost going to make it 3 abreast. He said that wouldn't be the smart thing to do, so he backs off.
We're watching the battle for 4th position as we have completed 67 laps. Benny Parsons, Bobby Allison, and Richard Petty all battling for that 4th spot. The leader continues to be Darrell Waltrip. Second at this time is Terry Labonte, and third is Harry Gant, but this battle for fourth position is a good one.
But it's also a good battle up front. If we get the cameras back up there, Bob, Terry Labonte has run down Darrell Waltrip after moving around Harry Gant a few laps to go, so he is zeroing in on the lead.
So battles for first position and also battles for fourth position. Here is the Bobby Allison and Richard Petty duel down the main straightaway. Petty tries to move to the outside now. Bobby Allison cannot make the pass. Now tries him to the inside. Again, it looks like the cars touch as they come off of the second corner. Trading some paint out there on this 5/8 of a mile racetrack. The next live race that we will do for you on ESPN will be 2 weeks from today. And that will be the Talladega 500, the Winston 500 from Talladega Motor Speedway, the longest racetrack, and as a matter of fact, the fastest racetrack. The racing will be quite different. They'll be driving at speeds well over 200 miles an hour and drafting on each other. That's not the case this afternoon on this short track. Now, Darrell Waltrip has moved out ahead a little bit of Terry Labonte, has about an 8 or 10 car length lead as they go down the backstretch and complete lap number 71. Darrell Waltrip is the leader. Second position belongs to Terry Labonte. Third is Harry Gant. And in fourth position now is Benny Parsons. We'll resume with more coverage after these messages.
I'm Johnny Rutherford, and this is Indy.
75 laps have been completed in the Northwestern Bank 400. Darrell Waltrip is the leader. Terry Labonte running in second position, and Harry Gant is third. We have been slowed by 2 yellows, involving a spin by Dale Earnhardt early in the race, and then 2 cars, Lake Speed and Butch Lindley, coming together over in turn number 2. All of those cars, however, were able to make pit stops, change rubber, and are back in competition. Darrell Waltrip's challenger at this time is the number 44 J.D. Stacy Chevrolet, driven by Terry Labonte from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Bob, we see as they approach the turns, Waltrip pulls away as they come off of the turns, but going into the turn, Labonte picks back up on it. That means that he's driving deeper into the turn, but sometimes that's not necessarily the fastest way around the racetrack. If you back off a little bit earlier so you can accelerate earlier, sometimes that can be better. And Waltrip is using that concept now, whereas Labonte is using the concept of driving deeper into the turns.
The leader's putting a lap on Jimmy Means from Forest City, North Carolina, the number 52 Buick. Ned, this will be a good time to talk about this racetrack. We alluded to the fact that there is a decided difference in the front stretch and the back stretch. Driving down the front stretch, you are actually going downhill by 11 feet from the fourth turn to the first turn, whereas on the back stretch, you are going uphill by 11 feet. Can you notice a difference when you're out there driving?
Yes, you can. And one thing that you have to be very careful of is not to get into the first turn too fast, because you are going downhill. Your engine turns more RPMs, you're running faster, and it's awfully easy to get in there too fast and get you fouled up. By the same token, you might back off too early going into turn 3 and not get in there as fast as you need to. So you have to really concentrate doubly heavy all the way around the racetrack.
Waltrip and Terry Labonte, first and second. Third position still belongs to Harry Gant. In fourth place is Benny Parsons. Fifth, Richard Petty. And Dale Earnhardt apparently has moved up to sixth position. So Dale Earnhardt, despite the fact that he spun early in this race and had to make several pit stops because of a bent spoiler on the front end, is moving up well and is now in sixth position, right behind Richard Petty.
Earnhardt is certainly, we mentioned earlier, that he's been one of the fastest drivers on the circuit this year. He's led more laps than any other driver. He has 1 win. He won the Rebel 500 at Darlington a couple of weeks ago, but in other races that he'd been in, he was a dominating factor for a while before one thing or another would happen to him. So he'd like to get back up front again if he possibly could.
Butch Lindley is out of this race. He is with Ron Kendrick.
Butch, short day for you. What happened to the car?
Like something happened to the valve. We had a little bit of problem on the race with the valve trouble, and it got us in the race.
Looks like pretty tough competition out there today.
It really is. Everybody real well, and it was a long time to go in the race. Yeah, it looks like Darrell's got covered.
Okay, Butch Lindley trying his hand to North Wilkesboro, out of competition.
Bob, Butch Lindley was one of 3 drivers that went to Nashville, Tennessee to race last night. In a race, Butch finished in 5th place. Neil Bonnet won the race over there, and Waltrip, I did not learn how he came out in the race, but boy, they have been doing a lot of racing this weekend.
This is the battle for 10th position involving Morgan Shepherd and Ron Bouchard. The battle for 10th. Morgan Shepherd in that Levi Garrett Buick running in 10th position at this time, and right behind him is Ron Bouchard, who is the defending Rookie of the Year. He won the Rookie of the Year honors last year. Ron Bouchard so far this year has competed in all of the Grand National races. He finished 6th at Daytona, 9th at Richmond, 8th at Bristol, 36th at Atlanta, 16th at Rockingham, and 34th in the Darlington race. Morgan Shepherd, right ahead of him, has also competed in all of the races this year. His best finish this year has been a 3rd at Bristol. He is also known as a short track specialist. The lead continues to be held by Darrell Waltrip, with Terry Labonte in 2nd position and Harry Gant in 3rd. There is the interval between the first and second place cars. Dave Marcus, as we indicated earlier, won the most recent race that we did for you on ESPN. That was at Richmond, Virginia, a very exciting race in which he was in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, things not as good for him today. He is in the pit area with Ron Kendrick.
Dave, what happened on the car?
Well, I think something happened to the engine. Got a mist in it a couple laps, and oil pressure started going down, so I just shut it off.
Who's got the strongest car out there right now?
I didn't hear it.
Who's got the strongest car out there right now?
Well, Darrell's car's running real good. Of course, Perry's running good, and you know, Benny Parsons' car looks good and strong too. So it's pretty hard to tell yet who has the strongest car.
Okay, thank you. Tough break for Dave Marcus out of competition here in North Wilkesboro.
Darrell Waltrip moving around the slower car here on the straightaway. That is Brad Teague. Right behind him still Terry Labonte running in 2nd position. We'll have more coverage of this 7th stop on the Winston Cup Trail. Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, and Ron Kendrick back in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. We have completed 93 laps of a 400-lap race, and Darrell Waltrip is the leader at this time, with Terry Labonte running in 2nd position. We have talked throughout the race so far about how this is a handling racetrack, and naturally there are adjustments that can be made to these cars to make them handle better. Well, Ned Jarrett yesterday did a little bit of a report here on what adjustments can be made to make the car handle better.
In watching a NASCAR Grand National race, or perhaps listening to a broadcast, you've heard the term used, weight distribution, which is a very important factor in this type of racing. There's a number of ways that they can accomplish the weight distribution on a car. Of course, the first thing to start with is the 4 springs that goes under the car. And here we have 4 springs that would go under the car number 75, the Raymont car that Joe Ruttman will be driving here today. The right front spring is the strongest. About 1,500 pounds is what the strength of this spring is. The left front would be about 12 to 1,300 pounds. Then the next strongest spring would be on the right rear, and then, of course, the weakest on the left rear. Now let's take a look at how they can adjust those springs and change that weight distribution. Now, under the hood, of course, where the front springs would go, the right front, they do have an adjustment on that coil. They put a wrench on it and, of course, turn it. If they screw it down, that means that they're shifting weight from the right front to the left rear. If they're working on the left front, which has a very similar situation, it would be exactly to the opposite. And then, of course, the sway bar comes into play in the weight distribution, especially when the car goes into a turn. Most of the drivers would use a 1-inch sway bar with a very strong arm on it, and it also has an adjustment on it. And as we walk towards the back, we can see that there are adjustment screws also on the rear coil springs. The term wedge was derived a number of years ago in the early days of racing, when they were using the old Model Fords with cross springs, and they would actually drive a metal wedge in to tilt the car to shift the weight from one side to the other. Now, the way they measure the weight now is by sticking a jack under the center section of the rear axle housing, jacking it straight up, and if the right wheel comes off the ground before the left wheel does, that means they have that much wedge. This car here has about 3 inches of wedge, which is about standard for a track like North Wilkesboro.
The car used in that demonstration, the number 75 of Joe Ruttman, he is currently running in 14th position, and he is battling with the number 50 Pontiac driven by Jeff Bodine, and those drivers are in these cars for the first time. We have had a number of driver changes in the NASCAR circuit in the past week. Joe Ruttman, of course, moving from the Stacy crew to the Raymont crew here, and Joe Milliken losing the ride to the number 50, and Bodine picking up the ride. Ruttman apparently handling fairly well as he was able to sneak by Bodine on the inside there. As Joe Ruttman now has moved up another position, he will be scored in 13th position now. The leader is Darrell Waltrip, second Terry Labonte, third Harry Gant, fourth is Benny Parsons, fifth is Richard Petty, in sixth position is Dale Earnhardt, seventh is Tim Richmond, eighth is Ricky Rudd, ninth is Bobby Allison, and 10th is Morgan Shepherd. We have completed 103 laps to this point, and again, there is the interval between Waltrip and Labonte.
There really is a difference in the straightaway speed of those two cars, Bob. As we noted earlier, Waltrip really accelerates off of the turns. Labonte is driving a little bit deeper into the turns, but Waltrip just has the speed, the horsepower that it takes once he starts off of the turn. As he laps Buddy Arrington in the car number 67, moves around the Hillen driver, car number 8.
Waltrip using the low groove in turn number 3 and 4 onto the main straightaway. Here is Bobby Hillen Jr. in the number 8 Hillen Drilling Buick. Bobby Jr. from Midland, Texas, 17 years of age. Of course, his father owns some Indianapolis-type race cars, but Bobby trying to work into the racing profession here on the Grand National Circuit. This is his very first race. And Ned, can you remember back when you drove your first Grand National race? Were you a little nervous? Were you a little cautious out there?
I would say that I was, but I was older than 17, Bob. I'd had a little bit of experience, particularly in sportsman-type competition on dirt tracks around the country. In fact, one of the very first Grand National races that I drove was here at North Wilkesboro when the track was still dirt. That would have been back in the mid-1950s. I think the Speedway was paved in 1956, but they had some great Grand National races here when it was dirt. As we see Waltrip move on the inside of Lenny Pond, the car number 24. Boy, he just is able to pass them where he finds them. But a fellow like Hillen has to be, well, he has to be thrilled, first of all, to be here running with the greatest stock car drivers in the world and to make the race the very first time. Although he started next to last, but still it was a tremendous accomplishment just to make the field, because there were some veterans that went home yesterday after qualifying ended before the rains came, and they've been around for a long, long time, and here comes a 17-year-old that beat them.
Darrell Waltrip started from the pole position and is leading this race. 5 of the 21 races have been won from the pole. Darrell would like to win here this afternoon. Back with more coverage on ESPN after this. Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, first and second. Harry Gant is running in third position. But right now, it is a good battle between Benny Parsons and Harry Gant. As a matter of fact, Benny Parsons has moved around. Benny Parsons has taken over third position. Gant falls back into fourth.
It doesn't look like Gant's car is handling the way that he wants to, Bob. He's tried the high groove several times. He's tried running down low. Parsons has been running very good on the low groove of the track. Gant has been running a little bit higher, but now that Parsons has passed him, he said, well, maybe he's got the best way around this race. Let me try down low. But you can see right there, he can't keep the car down. The car simply just won't stay down in that bottom groove, and that's what's costing him some time right now as Parsons moves up on Mark Martin to put a lap on him.
Harry Gant is from Taylorsville, North Carolina, and Harry started outside of row number 1 in this race, second starting position, but is beginning to fall back just a little bit. Benny Parsons, however, is moving up rather nicely. Benny Parsons started 10th this afternoon. He, of course, hails from Ellerby, North Carolina, and he has now moved into third position at this time. There is an interval of about a half a straightaway between second place Terry Labonte and Benny Parsons here, who is running in third place. Mark Martin in the number 02 car, who started up front in fourth position, has had a few problems, been in the pits a couple of times, and so he is not on the lead lap. He is second in the Winston Cup standings at this time. Benny Parsons, who sat on the pole for this year's Daytona 500. And Parsons' performance so far this year, he finished 26th at Daytona, 3rd at Richmond, 9th in Bristol, 4th in Atlanta, 3rd in Rockingham, and 4th in Darlington. Here, meanwhile, is the king of this racetrack, Richard Petty.
He and Harry Gant perhaps use higher grooves on short tracks more than anybody else. And he is already starting to move up a little bit on the racetrack. When we saw him earlier, now he's coming off low that time as he comes off of turn 4. But I think that he's using a higher groove between 1 and 2. Let's see as he goes in there. Yes, he's moved up about a half a car width. And as the afternoon goes on, we'll see Richard Petty moving higher and higher. But he has the ability, the uncanny ability, to detect where the fastest spot is on the racetrack. He searches for it and finds it and then runs accordingly.
Again, we tell you that in the last 12 years in this race, Richard Petty has finished either first or second. So Richard Petty would like to keep that string alive. Here, meanwhile, is Harry Gant, who's being challenged by Dale Earnhardt, and this is the battle for 4th position. So Harry Gant, again, beginning to drop off the pace just a little bit, while Dale Earnhardt, who had a problem earlier, is moving up nicely.
It doesn't appear as if that spin and the adjustments they made on the car, they had to take a hammer and beat that front spoiler around, but it looked like they got it back in good shape, Bob, because that car is handling well. Earnhardt doing a tremendous job of driving here. Look how close he comes to the wall as he came off the there.
All right. Ned, if you could explain how the problem with the spoiler would affect the car. Would it affect it in the turns and the straightaways or every place?
It would affect it more going into the turn on a track of this sort, because he finally moved around Harry Gant and has taken over the 4th position, and now he's moving up on Mark Martin. But the pressure that the spoiler would, from the wind pushing down on the spoiler, would hold the front end down as you're going into the turn, and it just make it more stable.
Well, Harry Gant finished second several times last year, has not been that fortunate this year. Dale Earnhardt, look at him sneak right up on the back bumper of the number 2 car driven by Mark Martin. Now Mark moving to the inside and allowing the faster Earnhardt to get around, as Harry Gant also will take advantage of that situation as the cars come off of turn 2. Both Earnhardt and Gant move around Mark Martin, and now Dale Earnhardt will set his sights on Benny Parsons, who is running 3rd, and the interval is again about a half a straightaway between the 3rd place car of Benny Parsons and 4th, driven by Dale Earnhardt. The leaders, meanwhile, continue to be Darrell Waltrip and Terry Labonte. They have been running 1st and 2nd for most of the race so far. And again, we notice that down the straightaway, it is Waltrip that's able to move ahead just a little bit, but in the turns, Labonte able to narrow the distance. Beautiful day here in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and a tremendous crowd on hand for this race. They have grandstands here, of course, on the main straightaway. There are grandstands on the back stretch, and all of them are filled. It is a great day. Well, as we continue to cover the Northwestern Bank 400, again, we'll remind you that Darrell Waltrip is the leader. Running in 2nd position is Terry Labonte, and we'll take this break, resume our coverage after this. Darrell Waltrip is moving around some of the slower cars, putting a lap on Joe Ruttman here, going down the front straightaway into turn number 1. Waltrip the leader, Labonte 2nd, and Benny Parsons now running in 3rd place.
Boy, when you say some of the slower cars, Bob, they really are fast cars that he's running. He's just setting a tremendous pace here this afternoon as he moves on the outside of Ron Bichard's car, number 47, and he does it with ease. That car is really handling beautifully here for him this afternoon. So Junior Johnson, the car owner, and the rest of that Mountain Dew crew have really done their homework, as they usually do at every race, but particularly here at North Wilkesboro, which is home base for Junior Johnson.
North Wilkesboro, of course, as you indicated, very close to the garages of Junior Johnson. Darrell Waltrip, the driver, of course, hailing from Franklin, Tennessee, and always gets a big round of something when his name is introduced. He has race fans, and he has those that don't think very much of him. There's always a mixture of boos and applause when Darrell Waltrip's name is mentioned at the racetrack. As we see both cars now beginning to move up to the higher groove. Terry Labonte down the main straightaway, putting a lap on Lake Speed. And both of those cars beginning to move out now just a little bit and widen the groove in the turns. We've been noticing that most of the leaders, Ned, are beginning to move up toward that outside wall in turns 3 and 4 and in the 1st and 2nd turn.
Yes, they have. Traffic has necessitated that to some degree, but they'll find, too, that it'll be a little bit drier up there. As we mentioned before, they drop a little water and a little bit of grease and a little bit of oil, and it'll eventually get slick. And so they'll just move a little higher where it's a little bit drier to run. Benny Parsons is taking a good high line back in the field as he makes his way up through there. But when he can, Waltrip still moves back down on the inside when he has no traffic to contend with.
Ron Bouchard and Joe Ruttman are battling side by side out there. That is for the 13th position. That's for and a spin. And into the wall goes Ron Bouchard. He tapped the wall with the right rear of that car as he was battling with Joe Ruttman. However, Bouchard is able to hold on and keep the car running, and he's still going to be in competition. But the yellow comes out. It's our third yellow of the afternoon. A spin involving Ron Bouchard, who did touch the outer wall with that car, Ned.
Yes, he did, and he did a tremendous job of bringing it back down, keeping it under reasonable control, and it doesn't look like he did too much damage. You can see the right rear quarter panel of the car bashed in a little bit. Here they are as they came around. They touched, just sent him into the spin, and Benny Parsons had to be sitting on pins and needles there for a moment also because he didn't know which way either of those cars were going to go, but fortunately they straightened out, left him a place to go.
Well, Benny Parsons was very lucky there because he was following Joe Ruttman. Now we have another series of pit stops. Here is the leader, Darrell Waltrip, into the pit area. Petty, however, did not come in. He's still out there on the racetrack, and for the moment will be shown as the leader, but he undoubtedly will come in soon.
And that's exactly the reason he stayed out on the racetrack, is to be the leader. There's a 5-point bonus to the drivers for Winston points anytime they lead a lap, and boy, they'll take advantage of this type of a situation.
We've been noticing Jody Ridley's car number 90 in the last couple of laps with some type of fumes or some smoke from it. I don't know whether it's an engine problem, whether it's something rubbing a tire or what, but you can see smoke coming from that car on the left rear. Meanwhile, several other cars come into the pit area, and Richard Petty did come in, so he will be scored as leader of that lap, but he's into the pits now.
That's right. He led that lap, even though he was coming down pit road. Still, the start-finish line goes all the way across the racetrack, across the pit road. So he did get credit for that lap, gave him the 5-point bonus, and so he's in being able to make this stop.
And as indicated,
4 tires, it looks like, on Petty's car.
As indicated, he is 9th in the Winston Cup points battle at this time. Now the crew goes to work on the left side of the car, replacing the rubber. You can see the NASCAR official there indicating to the cars pulling out of the pit area onto the racetrack to go out with caution. Now Richard Petty is away, and right behind him, son Kyle. So both of the Pettys in for pit stops at the same time. We are under our third yellow of the afternoon. Ron Bouchard spun and hit the wall up in turn number 2, but was able to keep it going. That's the reason why we are under caution at this time. The leader at this time will be Darrell Waltrip, and still second place, Terry Labonte. Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, and Ron Kendry covering the Northwestern Bank 400, and we'll be after this.
Look, if you're an investor who's tired of being too late when investments are heading up, too late when they're heading down, look ahead. Look into Barron's. Every week, Barron's gives you page after page of useful investment information, days, weeks, even months ahead.
Well, all the leaders have been in the pit area or are in right now. Several cars still on pit road receiving service. Dale Earnhardt is the first car behind the pace car and will be scored as the leader. Running in second place, Darrell Waltrip. Third would be Tim Richmond, and fourth would be Terry Labonte. That's the way the cars are lined up behind the pace cars. They come down here to complete lap number 141.
Bob, it'll be interesting to see when the green flag drops again. We've seen Earnhardt battling all day to get back up in the pack after having gotten back as far as 30th position after his spin there one time. It was hard to tell whether he had the fastest car on the racetrack or whether it was Darrell Waltrip who was leading the race. So now they're up there together. Boy, this should be something when that green flag drops.
And, of course, we'll also be watching Richard Petty in the number 43 STP Pontiac as he works his way up through the field and tries to keep that string alive of finishing either first or second in the last 12 years. Now, there are 2 races that are held here at this racetrack each year. The defending champion of this particular race is Richard Petty. Second last year in this race was Bobby Allison, and third was Darrell Waltrip. They also run a race here in the fall, and last fall that race was won by Darrell Waltrip, with Allison finishing in second position, and Joe Milliken was third. The cleanup continues on the second turn as the pit crews are out there. Now we have a conference here in the Junior Johnson pit as they've got their heads together trying to decide, perhaps as you wonder, Ned, is Darrell the fastest car out there or is Dale Earnhardt?
Well, I'm sure that they're discussing it. Of course, they have looked at the kind of tire wear that they're getting and wondering how many more laps they can go. Will they need to change the left side tires again, or exactly what will have to happen? Now Junior is talking to Darrell on their 2-way radios. So they don't go to sleep once those pit stops are made. Boy, they evaluate everything that has gone on up to that point, talk it over among the crew, and then plan their strategy for the balance of the race.
And again, the track cleanup crews are still out there, so we're going to be under yellow for a few more laps. We'll take another break. The leader at this point in the Northwestern Bank 400 is Dale Earnhardt. Second, Darrell Waltrip, and third, Tim Richmond, 141 laps.
Travel with Timer.
The drivers have been told that they will receive the green next time around. This is the situation to this point. 144 laps completed. We have had 3 leaders, Waltrip, Petty, and Earnhardt, 4 lead changes, and 3 caution periods. The leader at this point is Dale Earnhardt, and right behind him is Darrell Waltrip. The cars line up 2 abreast. The slower cars to the inside, the faster cars to the outside. Here is the green. We're back to racing on the 145th lap. Dale Earnhardt pulls out ahead of Darrell Waltrip. The car between the two is Joe Ruttman. Now Waltrip, trying to get around Ruttman on the backstretch, is able to do so. Right behind Darrell Waltrip is Tim Richmond, who took over this ride last race at Darlington and apparently has the seat in that car for the rest of the season.
He's taking a good line around the racetrack, Bob, and he's able to take the line that he wants to while he's out front. We'll see if Waltrip can close in on him. He'll run a little bit deeper into that turn. Now, Waltrip is still working very good right down on the inside of the track and has moved right back up on his bumper.
Waltrip still keeping Earnhardt in his sights and, in fact, trying to move to the inside here in turn number 2, going down the backstretch. Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip battling for the lead here in turns number 3 and 4. Here they are off of the turn onto the straightaway. Darrell Waltrip moving to the inside. Can he pull off the pass? No, he cannot. Earnhardt will be scored as the leader of that lap, but now Waltrip pulling right alongside Earnhardt in the second turn. Off a bit down the backstretch and nosing ahead by 3/4 of a car length is Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip takes over the lead from Earnhardt. Let's see if he'll be scored as the leader of this lap. Yes, he will. Darrell Waltrip has moved ahead of Earnhardt and has established himself as the leader once again. So perhaps we have answered the question. Waltrip, the fastest car on the racetrack. Down to the Junior Johnson pit once again, and Ron Kendrick.
Junior Darrell just took over the lead again. You were having a big conference here with the rest of your crew. Is there a problem?
No, the tires right there are showing a little bit loose. We were discussing what kind of chassis change that we need to make the car handle like it's supposed to. Last stop that we made, we adjusted the chassis and it seems to help, so we're probably on the right track.
No problems whatsoever then?
No, sir.
Okay, that's the word. Darrell Waltrip, crew chief Junior Johnson.
I'd say they're on the right track, Bob. He's got that thing out front.
It certainly does appear that he's having any problems out there. Meanwhile, Morgan Shepherd just got the black flag. We noticed smoke coming from that car. Could he be dropping oil on the racetrack, Ned?
Yes, he very well could be. It looks like that smoke is coming from the exhaust on the right side. A tough break for Morgan Shepherd. He expected to run very well here in this race because he's a short track specialist. But now it looks like it's coming from the right front. It is coming from the right front. There's Buddy Parrott and the crew going to work changing that right front tire, but there's something that was causing that smoke. Now he's going to go to work in there. Apparently the fender was rubbing against the tire, so a very tough break here. He must have put another car out there, pushed the fender in just a little bit, and that's where the smoke was coming from. But a very, very costly pit stop here for Morgan Shepherd, having to do all of that work during the green flag running.
And once again, evidence of what can go wrong on short track races where you're trading paint and bumping and banging with other cars out there. Darrell Waltrip, the leader. Second position is Dale Earnhardt, and third is Terry Labonte. Running fourth, Tim Richmond, and fifth is Benny Parsons. In the battle for second position now, involving Terry Labonte to the inside of Dale Earnhardt as they move into turn number 3. Labonte right alongside Earnhardt. Labonte with a slight advantage coming off of the fourth turn, and Labonte moves around Earnhardt just for a fraction of a second, but they basically stay side by side all the way around the racetrack. A good side-by-side battle here for second on the 155th lap of this 400-lap race. Terry Labonte now able to get that car completely around Dale Earnhardt, and Labonte moves back into second position. Earnhardt, who was the leader a few laps ago, has dropped back to third, but is he just playing it cautious because there's a long way to go, Ned?
Well, it's hard to believe that Dale Earnhardt would play it cautious. He likes to run out front, even though he has tried to change his driving strategy a little bit in recent races. His car owner, Bud Moore, there's Morgan Shepherd as he back out in the running running now after making that unscheduled pit stop. But Bud Moore had talked to him and told him, said, hey, you got to be smart in these races. They're long. You can punish the car too much. And it could be that he's taking a little bit easier right now, letting those fellows run hard out front, let Labonte by so he could chase Waltrip down and make him run Waltrip hard, and that could work to his advantage later in the race.
About a 3 or 4 car length advantage that Darrell Waltrip has over Terry Labonte at this point. As we indicated earlier, Terry Labonte leads the Winston Cup point standings at this time, going for the championship. We ask him about it.
Well, I don't know. We got off to a real good start this season, and the cars run real well all year, and we finished all the races. And naturally, when you finish all the races and run pretty good and have some good finishes, you're going to be up good in the point standings, and that's where we're at right now.
Terry Labonte, second position in that J.D. Stacy Chevrolet. Terry, hailing from Corpus Christi, Texas, is 25 years of age. He started this race this afternoon up front. As we indicated, he had the fastest qualifying time on Friday, but didn't have such a good qualifying average yesterday, and so therefore he did not start on the pole. Battle between Richard Petty and Ricky Rudd out there, with a veteran Petty with the relative newcomer Ricky Rudd. And right behind them would be Harry Gant, and this is the battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th position, involving the 3 cars of Richard Petty, Ricky Rudd, and Harry Gant.
Petty's car still working very nicely down on the inside of the track now as Gant moves on the inside of Rudd. Once you get out of that groove, there's another car there that can move right on the inside. I'm sure that they made some adjustments on Harry Gant's car during that last pit stop, because as we pointed out, he was having trouble keeping the car down in the turns, and there he and Rudd touched as they come down the front straightaway. Didn't bother either of them. Gant still trying to get him around him, and a good battle there for that position. Rudd accelerating off the turns on the high side gives him a little bit of momentum, but Gant driving a little bit deeper going into the turns.
Well, Ned, how much contact can you make out there traveling at this speed on this size racetrack without getting in trouble?
Depends a great deal on the portion of the racetrack that you're on and the position of the race car. If you're coming off the turn when you're almost out of control anyway, the slightest tap sometimes can spin you around. But if it's on the straightaway or in the dead center of the turn, sometimes it doesn't bother you quite as much. But they expect it on a track of this sort, know that they're going to get close together and sort of condition themselves at least mentally for it.
164 laps completed. Here's the rundown. Waltrip first, Labonte second. It is Dale Earnhardt running in 3rd position. 4th is Tim Richmond. 5th, Benny Parsons. 6th, Richard Petty. 7th, Harry Gant. And 8th, Ricky Rudd. ESPN presenting live coverage today of the Northwestern Bank 400 from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. ESPN presents its first live PGA telecast from the Lakewood Country Club in New Orleans. First round Thursday, April 22nd at 3 p.m. noon Pacific time, live. Second round will be on April 23rd at 3 p.m. noon Pacific time. The third round on Saturday, the 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 o'clock Pacific time. And then final round coverage Sunday, April 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern time and 5 p.m. Pacific time. Tom Watson, the defending champion, hopes to repeat this year. Join us for our first PGA telecast from the Lakewood Country Club in New Orleans beginning on April 22nd. Darrell Waltrip and Terry Labonte are still showing the way in the Northwestern Bank 400 from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. These are the drivers that are watching from the sidelines. Slick Johnson, Dave Marcus, Butch Lindley, Bob Shack, Lenny Pond, and Lake Speed. Those drivers have dropped out of competition so far. We have completed 171 laps, not quite halfway through this 400-lap race. The leader, Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte right behind him, coming down the straightaway here, crossing the start-finish line. They're putting some laps on some of the back markers, moving around the number 25 of Ronnie Thomas from Christiansburg, Virginia, in a Pontiac. Ronnie, 26 years of age. Benny Parsons and Tim Richmond, meanwhile, are running side by side out there. This is the battle for 4th position, Benny Parsons and Tim Richmond. Richmond looked so good at the Darlington racetrack. The first ride he had with the Stacy crew, and he is trying to prove himself as a top-notch Grand National driver with this crew. He, of course, a former Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Tim Richmond devoting most of his time, however, to the Grand National Circuit nowadays.
They traded a little paint there, too, when he passed him. Both of them wobbled just a little bit, but again, nothing too serious. We saw on the right side of Carson's car as he came around just after he got around Richmond that there was some blue paint on the side of that car. Now he begins to pull away a little bit. Richmond driving deep into the turns, driving a very good, smart race here again today.
And these two drivers a few seconds ago, when they were in turn number 4, as you indicated, got very, very close together. Rutman to the outside, or rather Richmond to the outside and Parsons to the inside. But look how close they are, going at speeds well over 100 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, they touched coming off of that 4th turn. Now they've settled back into a single file situation. Here is a problem with the Brad Teague automobile in the pit area. I was not watching, Ned. Did he pull the car to that direction, or exactly what happened?
I think he did, but I think he had a fire under the hood. He has gotten out of the car, and they do have the fire out now. There's Lake Speed pushing his car back out. He's been in for several laps. He's going back into it, but the firemen are still shooting some of the spray under the car of Brad Teague. Teague was a late model sportsman driver for this year, so now they're shooting it in the trunk compartment of the car. So he's had some fire under there. Brad finished 2nd in the NASCAR late model sportsman point standings last year, decided to go for Rookie of the Year this year in the Winston Cup Series, but he's running 2nd right now to Mark Martin in the point standings.
And all of that action in the pit area so the green stays out. Tim Richmond, will he drive at the Indianapolis 500 or in Charlotte? We ask him about that.
Well, it's kind of a, I guess you could say, backup possibility. You know, if some unforeseen something or another happens, you know, I'll have something to go with come May. But the way it stands, I'm pretty sure I'll be at the World 600 instead of the Indianapolis 500.
And Tim Richmond apparently going to stay with the Grand National Division for a while. He certainly is in a position here, Ned, to prove himself with this great machinery that he's driving for J.D. Stacy.
Yes, he is. That's one of the best cars on the circuit, as we see Terry Labonte moving in close on Darrell Waltrip once again. But Richmond has progressed about as quickly as any young driver that I've seen come on the circuit in a long time, Bob. This is his 3rd year, I guess, actually only his 2nd full year, and he has been able to land a top-notch ride that quick. Most of the time, the drivers go 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 or 12 years before they get an opportunity of that sort. But I'll tell you, he not only appears to have a lot of talent on the racetrack, but he has some other things going for him also, and that is he's a good-looking fellow. He's very articulate, and he dresses nice. He does all the things that a sponsor would like to see their driver do. He makes a good appearance, and public relations now is an important part of this business.
30,000 race fans are looking on here at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. A new record attendance for this race, and they are getting their money's worth, believe me. It is Waltrip and Labonte running 1st and 2nd. Look at Harry Ganto move way high on the racetrack. Ned, he has those right tires clear up in the gray in the turn.
Yes, he does, and that's the fans who have seen Harry Gant drive this track before and several others know that it's not too unusual to see him doing that. It takes a lot of gall to run up that high. Sometimes, you know, some rubber and debris can be thrown up there, and boy, you hit that stuff, it's just like hitting on marbles. And Gant has no hesitation about getting up there, because it cost him right there as Ricky Rudd was able to move on ahead of him.
Well, then it would seem that since he is really running a longer race here, because moving to the outside, you do have to run a little longer, I suppose. Does that use up more fuel?
Well, it might use up a little more fuel. I don't think that it would be significant as far as that part of it is concerned, but it does not put quite as much pressure on your tires and doesn't heat them up quite as much as when you're running down low. You pinch it down a little bit and then have to accelerate harder off of the turns from the inside, and that does tend to heat the tires up more. So there are advantages and disadvantages to it, I guess.
We were watching the battle for 7th and 8th position. Ricky Rudd in the number 3 Piedmont Airlines Pontiac, and Harry Gant in the Skoal Bandit Buick. The leader continues to be Darrell Waltrip, with Terry Labonte running in 2nd position. We talked a little bit earlier about the Champion Sparkplug rookie standings. Mark Martin is the current leader in that standing right now. Back with more of the Northwestern 400 after this.
Welcome back to ESPN's live coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400 here at the North Wilkesboro Motor Speedway. We're with Brad Teague right now. Brad, you had some problems, and the problems were on pit road. What happened?
The rear end caught on bar. I smelled it smoking about 50 laps ago, and then it finally caught on bar.
Looks like an awful lot of fender banking going on out there.
Yeah, they are. The track's pretty slick.
You've been out there now. Does Darrell have a strong enough car to hold on for the rest of the race?
I think Darrell's the man to beat.
Okay, Brad Teague with problems on pit road. He's out of competition. Rear end burn up on the car. Brad Teague is third in the rookie standings at this time, behind Mark Martin and James Souter. Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, and Dale Earnhardt are the first three with 191 laps completed. The battle for 8th and 9th position is between Harry Gant and the number 88 of Bobby Allison. Now, Allison was running up among the leaders earlier, but apparently a problem with that car also. He has dropped back now to 9th place.
That car certainly is not working as well as I thought he was going to here today. Bobby looked awfully good in practice on Friday and yesterday, and talking with him down this morning, he felt very good about it. And as we heard Gary Nelson, the crew chief on the car, say that the track was different from what they expected it to be. The track was, what he said, tighter, and or was not quite as tight. In other words, it's slicker than they thought it would be, and their chassis setup just simply is not working as well here today as they thought for it to.
Well, Bobby Allison has had an interesting year. He won, of course, the Daytona 500. The next race that we covered live for you from Richmond, Virginia, the day before the race, his car went through the retaining wall in turn number 1 and was almost completely destroyed. The crew did go to work and get the car repaired in order for him to compete in that race at Richmond. But Ned, does an accident like that set back a team?
Well, that team is big enough and experienced enough, have the personnel that they need, that it would not affect them as much as it would one of the lesser teams. But yes, that as many races as we had in a row there for a period of time, it certainly does affect the operation. But they were able to come out of it. In fact, they performed what I thought was a miracle that night and got that car back on the racetrack the next day.
Well, we were quite surprised, to be quite honest with you, to see Allison in the starting field for that Richmond race, because the car was just an absolute mess after he went through that guardrail and came to rest very close to some bleachers in turn number 1 at Richmond. But here he is this afternoon running in 9th position in the Northwestern Bank 400. Let's run down the standings. Waltrip is the leader, Labonte second, Earnhardt third. In 4th place is Benny Parsons, 5th is Tim Richmond, 6th is Richard Petty, 7th is Ricky Rudd, 8th is Harry Gant, 9th is Bobby Allison, and 10th would be Neil Bonnet. And Bonnet is someone we haven't talked about. Neil Bonnet is in this particular car for the first time this year. He is not necessarily a short track specialist, but he is running on the short track here today in the number 37 Buick. We will return with more coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400 after this from North Wilkesboro. Ned Jarrett and Ron Kendrick back in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. 204 laps have been completed, and there is the leader, Darrell Waltrip. He has led most of the race here. There have been 2 other leaders, Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty, but those drivers have led only for very short periods. Darrell Waltrip has pretty much dominated this race to this point, and we are just slightly more than half over. The prize money in this race totals $181,390. The leader will pick up $16,100, second place $9,990, third place $6,200, and the 4th place finisher this afternoon will pick up $4,275.
And Bob, that 4th position there, $4,275, is exactly $275 more than the total purse was when I ran my first race here.
Terry Labonte is the leader in the Winston Cup Series to this point. He has accumulated 952 points and $94,000. Benny Parsons second at 893 points and $96,000. Bobby Allison is third in points, but look at the prize money that he has won this year, $162,040. That, of course, because he has won the very rich Daytona 500.
Like $120,000.
4th place in the point standings is Darrell Waltrip, and he, too, has made much more money than the first two drivers in the point standings because he has won 2 races this year, but only accumulated 810 points. Morgan Shepherd is 5th in points with 798, and then Harry Gant with 787. And Gant has won more than $58,000.
Here's a good battle between Richard Petty and Benny Parsons. Petty in the car number 43 that he has made so familiar over the years, and Benny Parsons now moving up on him in the car number 28 in the Pontiac Le Mans. Petty's running a Pontiac Grand Prix.
And this is the battle for 6th position. Richard Petty and Benny Parsons, 192 laps to go. We are more than halfway through this race. They're putting a lap on J.D. McDuffie in the number 70 Pontiac out of turn number 4 onto the main straightaway. This battle for 6th position with Petty holding 6th at this point, and you can see how both cars do go much higher in those turns than they did earlier in the race, and much higher also down the backstretch. Now they settle into turns 3 and 4 here as they keep a little bit lower groove in that portion of the racetrack. Richard Petty has 195 Winston Cup wins to his credit and is trying to keep his string intact here at North Wilkesboro, finishing either 1st or 2nd position. Darrell Waltrip continues to be the leader with Terry Labonte running in 2nd position, Earnhardt 3rd. 4th is Tim Richmond, 5th Benny Parsons, and this the battle for 6th between Richard Petty and Benny Parsons. 212 laps completed now as this race has settled down to its middle stages. We have had quite a bit of a green flag here instead of the yellows. We've had only 3 yellows, one for a spin involving Dale Earnhardt early, then the Lake Speed and Butch Lindley spin, and then Ron Bouchard with the most recent yellow situation. He spun and hit the wall over there in turn number 2. Waltrip and Labonte, and you can see the interval between the 2 cars as still Terry Labonte is able to keep Darrell within striking distance, but not able at least to get into a position to pass Darrell Waltrip. Well, you'll notice there are lots of stickers on these race cars as they traverse around the Speedway, and Ron Kendrick had an opportunity to tell us more about those stickers.
Stock car goes by the grandstands, all you have time to see is the number on the side of the car. But there's some writing up front that's very important to the drivers. These stickers aren't on here just for decoration. They're sponsorship stickers. These people not only provide products to the racing teams, but they provide contingency money for the top finishers in the race. For these folks, you might win $300 if you finish 1st, maybe a couple of $100 if you finish 2nd. Are those stickers important? You better believe it is when you're running a more than $500,000 a year operation. On the side of Lenny Pond's car, we find that he has an additional sponsor, one that puts him on the winning team.
Harry Gant in the Skoll Bandit Buick is running at this point in 7th position. And Ned Jarrett has a very special guest up here in the broadcast booth. Ned?
Bob, we looked over to our left here in the grandstand, and there's a fellow out there that we thought would be up here in one of the big VIP suites, or maybe down in the pits. It's Hal Needham of Hollywood fame. Of course, he's is well known now to race fans around the world, and he owns that car, number 33. He and Burt Reynolds that we see going around there. And talk about that sponsorship and the $500,000. Sometimes that won't get it with it, Hal.
I got to tell you something. If they think the $500,000, I need to hire their crew, because I tell you, I can't get by for that much myself.
Yeah, but you come from Hollywood. It costs more money, you know, when you're a big star.
No, I'm not going to go for that. I tell you what, though, if I can watch Gant just get up there and run really tough, and hopefully he's going to win one, that makes it all worth it. I mean, it's just, for me to come down here and watch these people run, it's amazing what they do.
Well, certainly, it's always good to see you around. Al, we did spot you out in the grandstand. You got on a radio set and everything. You're there watching the race, but that's not the only purpose that you have there.
No, I'm sitting up here in the top, so anytime there's a wreck and my crew can't see it, then I can forewarn Harry what's going on. I can tell him there's a wreck in turn 2, turn 4, or whatever. So hopefully he'll, and I did warn him a couple of cautions we had. I could see him when he couldn't or the crew couldn't, so it serves a double purpose, and it makes me feel like I'm wanted.
He's been running a very high line here lately. Of course, that's sort of Harry's style, but it doesn't look like the car is working exactly the way that he would like to work here.
No, it isn't working good at all. They had to jack some weight in, I don't know whether it's right front or left rear or whatever. They were jacking weights, and also they put a rubber in the spring, but he's still having a problem. He said he's not getting a good bite. He seems to be sliding high all the time.
Well, right now he's taking over the 5th position from Tim Richmond as he moves around on the outside. He looked like he made that very easy. Now, very quickly, we know that you're planning another movie, and it will be a racing movie. Are you far enough along that you can talk about it yet?
Yeah, I can tell you what it's about. It's a thing called Stand on It. It's from a book. And so Bert's going to star in it. I'm going to direct it. And it's not really the history of NASCAR. It's a comedy action. And it's just, we used NASCAR and stock cars as the background. But basically, we're just going to do a fun action comedy film.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Thanks so much for stopping by. I know you want to get back out there to your work.
Okay, Ned. Thank you very much.
Al Nita joining us in the broadcast booth as we cover the Northwestern Bank 400 for you at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. There's your leader, Darrell Waltrip. And running in second position, still very, very close, and certainly not out of contention, is Terry Labonte. At this point, let's run down the standings for you. Dale Earnhardt continues to run third. Richard Petty has moved into fourth. In fifth position is Benny Parsons. Sixth is Ricky Rudd. Seventh, Harry Gant. Eighth, Tim Richmond. And ninth would be Bobby Allison. So those are the first 9 at this point who completed 226 laps. Waltrip in turn number 2, moving around D.K. Ulrich in the old light Milwaukee Buick. Ulrich, of course, started in the rear of the field and has not been in a competitive situation this afternoon, but DK is one of those who stays out there and finishes many races and has been very successful through the years on the Grand National Tour. 24 cars are still in this race. We started with 30. And that means that 6 have dropped by the wayside for one reason or another. Nobody, however, has dropped out of competition because of accidents. We've only had one incident of wall contact, and that was a rather light wall contact by Ron Bouchard, who was able to keep the car going and continue in the race.
Bob, we talked a little bit earlier about wondering if Earnhardt might, when Waltrip and Labonte passed him, wonder if he might be taking it easy. I'm beginning to wonder right now if Terry Labonte has not shown his full hand here yet this afternoon. He's able to pull up on Waltrip, but he sits there and runs about 8 or 10 car lengths behind him, as we see right now. He seems to be doing it with ease. Jake Gelder, the crew chief on that car, knows what it takes to win a race. He knows that Junior Johnson and Darrell Waltrip are tough to beat in any race, and especially here at North Wilkesboro, since it is Johnson's home base. I wonder if he has Terry Labonte just sitting there and just cooling it right now and not showing their hand. Maybe they could run a little bit faster than what they're doing.
Well, Darrell Waltrip right now is battling with Ron Bouchard, who is off the pace. You can see how battered that car is, as he did have contact with the wall, but obviously has had contact with other cars out there also.
And the other car that he had contact with is right on his back bumper, that car number 75 of Joe Ruttman.
That is correct. So those two cars are battling once again. Just as did a few laps ago, and we were following them just like this when one of them got out of shape, and it looked like that Joe Ruttman was battling the steering wheel there, trying to keep it from happening again.
Yes, they did. It looks like they made contact, and here they are again, and they are rubbing fenders there once again. See, as they come off of that turn. No love lost between those guys. Now, this is really not, they're not mad at each other, I don't think. I think they're battling hard.
Well, they probably know that they are off the pace and not in a real competitive situation, so perhaps they're just having a little fun out there, traveling at speeds well over 100 miles an hour. Joe Ruttman and Ron Bouchard. Well, we have completed now 133 laps. Darrell Waltrip the leader, second place Terry Labonte, and third place Dale Earnhardt. It's a good race, and we've got a lot more to go for you. We'll be back in a moment. Well, it looks like that my helicopter is waiting to get me out of the racetrack tonight as we tell you that ESPN will present live for you from Dallas, Texas, the WCT Finals. Quarterfinals on April 20th and 21st at 8 o'clock, 22nd and 23rd at 9 o'clock. The semifinals then on the 24th, and the finals on April 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Jim Simpson and Cliff Drysdale cover the action for you from Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas. Join us for that beginning April 20th, WCT Finals. Darrell Waltrip in the Mountain Dew Buick is continuing to show the way here in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Darrell, 35 years of age, from Franklin, Tennessee. and is the defending champion. His crew, the Dew crew, is pretty relaxed. One of them smoking a cigarette, the other's looking out of the racetrack, keeping tabs on how their driver is doing. But he's doing just fine right now and has a fairly comfortable lead, or 2 car lengths on Terry Labonte, but he's been able to keep that for the last few laps. Meanwhile, here is Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd, and as we look down our score sheet, we find that this is the battle for 5th position, with Benny Parsons holding it right now and Ricky Rudd right behind. Let's run down the standings as we have them. Of course, Waltrip and Labonte 1st and 2nd. 3rd is Earnhardt. 4th is Richard Petty. 5th is the number 28 car that you're watching right now, driven by Benny Parsons. 6th is Ricky Rudd. 7th is Harry Gant. 8th, Tim Richmond. And 9th is Bobby Allison. A lap down in 10th position is Neil Bonnet. 11th position is Morgan Shepherd, who is also a lap down. 12th position belongs to Joe Ruttman, who is 2 laps down, and 13th position belongs to the number 50 car of Jeff Bodine, who is 3 laps down. And Ned, once again, we see that although Darrell Waltrip, obviously, with the fastest car on the racetrack, is not pulling away by any means on Terry Labonte.
No, he is not. He's able to pull away from the rest of the field, but not Terry Labonte. He's just sitting there and looking so smooth, just watching Waltrip. There's one thing that has surprised me a little bit, Bob. If he has enough to get up there and move around Waltrip, I'm surprised that he hasn't done it at least for a lap, because he needs those 5 bonus points to go with the lead that he already has. But again, they're here to try to win the race, and maybe the strategy that they're employing, maybe he can't do any better, but I have a feeling, as smooth as he's looking right now, that he might have a little bit left under the hood of that car.
All right, Ned, we have run the past several laps under green. When can we, do you think, anticipate the next series of pit stops?
Well, I think if it should go green the rest of the way, that they should be able to get by with just one more pit stop, and I think that that would come somewhere between the 275 to 300 lap mark.
And we have completed now 245 laps. And of course, we will continue our coverage of the Winston Cup Trail throughout the year. Today was 7 live telecasts. This is our 2nd live telecast, the 3rd one coming up in 2 weeks from Talladega, Alabama. Ned, that's a fast racetrack, but I guess you've never driven on it.
That's one privilege I did not get. I quit before they built that track. They opened it in 1969. I quit in 1966. And I wish I would have had the opportunity to drive on that racetrack.
Crew chiefs watching their drivers out there in competition. That, of course, is Jake Elder watching the action out there.
Jake Elder, boy, I'll tell you, he's been around this sport for a while, but he is still considered one of the top men in this business, particularly with young drivers. He was instrumental in Dale Earnhardt's rise. He was instrumental in Darrell Waltrip after he came into Grand National Racing. And he just seems to have a special knack with young drivers and bringing them along. And he has a good one now. And Terry Labonte, as you mentioned earlier, he's only 25 years old, and he's been around for quite a while. Already has a win at Darlington, the Tough Southern 500. And that's a goal that most race drivers, if they could just win that race, it would make a career for them. But he's not finished, I'll assure you of that.
Let's give you a little bit of an indication of the spacing between the first 3 cars. The difference between 1st and 2nd place is about 8 or 9 car lengths. That is the interval there that you see on the screen. Now, the distance between 2nd place Labonte and 3rd place Dale Earnhardt is about a straightaway, so there is quite a big difference in 2nd and 3rd place at this point.
Earnhardt is still running very smooth by himself out there in that 3rd position. And Bob, I'd like to say hello to Bill Dennis, who is watching up in Glen Allen, Virginia. Bill would like to be here racing today, but most race fans remember that he had a tremendous crash while attempting to qualify for the Daytona 500. In fact, he was very lucky to come out of it, and he is recuperating well, and we understand from his family that he'll be back racing within the next 60 to 90 days, and they want us to pass along to all of the fans who have written, have sent money. They have done everything, he says, imaginable to help contribute to his recovery. And he says there's no way that we can contact all of those people. And he said if you folks would just say thanks to those people, we would really appreciate it. So, folks, there you have it from the Bill Dennis family.
And we certainly wish Bill a speedy recovery and hope that he's back on the racetracks very, very shortly. Terry Labonte, 2nd place, 4th at Daytona. In a tremendous battle on that particular racetrack, and now he has engaged himself in a battle on this racetrack with Darrell Waltrip. He's see that a car has moved between the two. That is Morgan Shepherd, but still Terry Labonte not letting Darrell Waltrip get out of his sights. Well, the track record here for 200 miles or 400 laps is held by Richard Petty back in April 18th of 1971. On this date, 12 years ago, at 98.479 miles an hour, that race was run without a caution. And we have had, of course, 3 of those already today, so we are probably not going to set a record for this particular event.
Well, here we see Bobby Allison moving on the outside of Tim Richmond into car number 2, and that's for, I believe, the 8th or 9th position, and Darrell Waltrip is right behind him. He's about to put a lap on those 2 cars, and either of them were potential winners and still are, I guess, to some degree, but Waltrip is running so fast, and those cars, particularly Allison's, not handling as well as they had hoped for it to, although he's able to move on the outside of Tim Richmond. If they aren't careful, they're about to go a lap down.
And this is the battle for 8th position. Bobby Allison and Tim Richmond. Richmond was running well up in the top 3 or 4 earlier in this race, but has been falling back in the last few laps, now in 8th position. And Bobby Allison is right behind him, now pulls alongside him in turn number 4, trying to capture that 8th position. Meanwhile, you can see that right behind Allison is the 2 lead cars, Waltrip and Labonte. So as you indicated, Ned, these 2 are very likely to be lapped in the next few laps, the 8th and 9th place cars.
Morgan Shepherd is already 1 lap down as Waltrip moves on the outside of him. Remember, Shepherd had that unscheduled pit stop when he had a fender rubbing a tire, so that put him a lap down, so he's about to go 2 laps down now as Waltrip moves on the outside of him. Bob, it looks like we have 2 distinct grooves on the racetrack right now. As we saw Bobby Allison trying to move around Tim Richmond, he was trying to do it on the high side, was running pretty good up there. Richmond was dipping down low, but they can run fast on either place, but apparently the low groove is still the best one if your car is working right, but some of them are able to run high.
It's a very comfortable day here in North Carolina as far as temperature is concerned, but Ned, the tremendous physical exertion that these drivers have to undergo, obviously you're pretty well wrung out at the end of 400 laps.
Yes, you are. You circle this track in around 20 seconds. They qualified about 19.5 seconds, but they don't run quite that fast in the race, but somewhere around 20 seconds. And the concentration that I mentioned earlier, because of the downhill front straightaway and the uphill back straightaway, is very tiring in itself. Plus, the concentration on the other cars, make sure that you don't get in the corner too fast. Here's Richard Petty coming into the pit, and this could be his last pit stop probably. I would have thought they'd have gone a little longer before he came in, but he's changing right side tires on the STP car, number 43. Of course, they'll fill it up with gasoline also, all of them using the Union 76 gasoline, racing gasoline in these cars. Petty still waiting for him to put the jack down. He's away. That's a good pit stop for Richard Petty, but that's going to put him back in the pack. He was running in 4th position before he came in, but you can see him take off now. 15.5 seconds he was in the pit, but now with those fresh tires on the right side, you'll be assured that he will take off because that fresh rubber, the cool tires, will let him run faster.
A little bit of race strategy here, perhaps, as Richard Petty chooses to be the first among the leaders to pit. And now, obviously, when the others come in, he will be in a very competitive situation. Here is Darrell Waltrip, still out there on the racetrack, but perhaps he is thinking pit stop also, and we'll be watching Waltrip and the other leaders to see when they will be coming in for a stop. Let's go to Ron Kendrick, who is in the Darrell Waltrip pit.
On the Junior Johnson today is Margaret Waltrip, Darrell Waltrip's mother. Mrs. Waltrip, your comments on the race so far?
Well, I love it so far. Sitting out front, but we go all the way.
We see Darrell on the racetrack. We see him around the racetrack. He's very cool. He's very sharp. Does he ever get uptight before a race? Does he ever talk to you about it?
Yeah, he'll talk to him, but he is uptight.
Do you ever think he races maybe too much? He's racing here today. He raced in Nashville last night. He's kind of like Bobby Allison. He'll fly anywhere to race a race car.
The only time he's happy is when he's racing.
I guess one question I should ask you, did you ever try and discourage him from doing this high-speed racing?
No. No, he's been racing ever since he's 12 years old, and we love it as much as he does, so we know he loves it.
Okay, there you have it. Margaret Waltrip, Darrell Waltrip's mother. She's watching him lead this race right now.
Back with more coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400 in a moment. The leader, Darrell Waltrip. Second position, Terry Labonte. Third is Dale Earnhardt. 6 cars are on the lead lap with the Northwestern Bank 400 at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. This is Bob Jenkins along with Ned Jarrett and Ron Kendrick covering the action for you. Those 6 cars are Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, Dale Earnhardt, Benny Parsons, Ricky Rudd, and Harry Gant. Just a couple of laps ago, the 7th place car of Tim Richmond was lapped, and so Tim goes a lap down. Darrell Waltrip in the Mountain Dew Buick is dominating this race to this point. And out of the race, it appears, is Mark Martin in car 02,
Apparently the rear gearing let go on the car, Bob. He shut it off as he went into the first turn, coasting all the way around the track, but they're looking under the rear housing of the car. It is a problem sometimes on short racetracks because they have turn coasting all the way around the track, but they're looking under the rear housing of the car. It is a problem sometimes on short racetracks because they have to run such a low gear here, and the gearing turns so many RPMs, it's hard to keep the grease cold or cool enough for what it'll burn the gear up. We've already seen that happen. Brad Pitt's car actually caught on fire from getting too hot in the rear end. And you see that problem more on short tracks than anywhere else. They'll go to Martinsville, Virginia next week, and it is a bigger problem there than at any racetrack that we're running.
You know, I noticed Mark Martin, when he made his last pit stop, was very slow getting out of the pit area, so that too could have signaled his transmission problem. Mark Martin from North Liberty, Indiana, 23 years of age, and going for Rookie of the Year honors this year. The Apache Stone Pontiac is parked in the pit area and is apparently out of competition. Harry Gant here in 6th position is apparently moving up quite well. We've been noticing him the last few laps going a little bit slower, but he has stood on the button here on the last couple of laps. Perhaps he was preparing for this, his pit stop. Here comes Harry Gant in the Skoll Bandit Buick, number 33. His pit area is well down to our right. We'll watch the pit action here as the crew goes to work on the right side of the car with new rubber, and of course fuel also being put into the car. We have the watch on him. We'll see how long it takes Harry Gant's pit stop. It was a good one, 12.7 seconds.
That's a super pit stop, especially on a short track. Boy, that will get him back into running right quick, Bob, because those 2 tires, as you pointed out with Petty, it did pick Petty up quite a bit, and so it will with Kent. Of course, the others will be coming in before too long. We would have thought they would go somewhere between lap 275 and 270 and 300. Right now, we are close to the 280 mark.
And exactly 281 laps have been completed, so 2 of the top 6 cars that are on the lead lap have pitted, namely Richard Petty and Harry Gant. Here is the leader, and look at him thread his way through traffic.
Boy, he just threaded the needle and went right on in there. I'll tell you, you got to have a lot of confidence. You got to have a car that's really working well, too.
And he is trying to get around Jody Ridley in the number 90 car. And also Morgan Shepherd. Here is another one of our top 6, Dale Earnhardt in the pit area. It's been a long afternoon for Dale. He spun in the early stages of this race, made several pit stops during the caution period, but did not lose a lap, and is in fact on the lead lap, and this too is going to be a pretty good pit stop. It's less than 17 seconds, 16.4 for Dale Earnhardt, 16.4 seconds, and Earnhardt pulls back into competition. So now 3 of the top 6 cars have made their pit stops, and we are awaiting the leader, Darrell Waltrip, to see whether he's going to pull in this time. He does not. He stays out there off of the 4th turn down in front of us on the main straightaway, completing another lap, but it isn't going to be too long, I'm sure, before Waltrip heads for the pit area.
Bob, did you ever pull into a service station, needed a tire change and a tank of gas and get it in 16 seconds?
Never have, and probably never will.
No, I doubt if you will either. It's amazing at what they can do in such a short period of time.
It really is. 285 laps completed now. So we have a little over 100 laps to go, 115 to be exact.
Well, they would be able to go the distance from here on, at least as far as the gasoline is concerned, but apparently they're wearing tires a little bit more here this afternoon than they had planned on, and coming in earlier to get those fresh tires on to pick the speeds up. In fact, they get to where it's awfully hard to drive the cars when those tires get worn and get very hot. Jeff Bodine just made a pit stop a moment ago in the car number 50. He's back out there in the running. Waltrip still trying to pick up the Morgan Shepherd. He has not been able to put that other lap on him. Morgan had gone a lap down earlier when he made an unscheduled pit stop, but Waltrip now just content following Shepard around in the car number 98. Shepard won at Martinsville, Virginia last year, his one and only Grand National win. He won a pole position at Richmond, Virginia last year, which put him into Busch Clash. But he has been a contender. He's a past late model sportsman champion. In fact, he only lives about 3 or 4 miles from where I do in Conover, North Carolina. A very determined young man. He wants to make it in this sport, wants to make it big. Very exciting.
And then that race that Morgan won last year, we covered on ESPN, and I was anticipating a very jubilant celebration in Victory Lane, but instead Morgan was virtually ill after that race. The race was so taxing on him that he was to the point of complete exhaustion.
Yes, he was, and I think a great deal of it was emotion, Bob.
Yeah.
And remembering back to when I won my first Grand National race, it's a very traumatic experience, and especially to win a race like Martinsville your first time out. Neil Bonney that's coming into the pits as Waltrip now moves on the outside of the car number 98 of Morgan Shepard. We see Terry Labonte just staying right in there in second place. He seems so content running there in that position.
Neil Bonnet in the pit area in the number 37 Buick. And Neil driving this car for the first time. We indicated earlier that he, in the past few years, driving for the Wood Brothers, has not driven on the short tracks, but is doing so here today.
Now the fourth place car, Ricky Rudd, is coming into the pit. So these are scheduled stops. There's Rudd's crew, Richard Childress and the crew putting gas in the Piedmont Airlines car. They're changing the right side tires. We're watching from the left side here as they put the gasoline in. And as you can see, as they jack up the right side, it's hard to get it plumb full. And I doubt if they got that completely filled, but he was away. It was a good pit stop for him. And here comes the leader, Darrell Waltrip, coming in, and Junior Johnson and the crew ready to go to work. This is one of the fastest crews in the business. They'll make a good pit stop, I'm sure, unless they have some sort of a problem. And they, like the others, are changing right side tires and filling it up with the gasoline. You can see the clock ticking away up there in the right-hand corner of your screen. And he's away in 14.5 seconds. A very good pit stop. Not quite as good as Harry Gantz. Here's Tim Richmond. He's in for his pit stop. Change the right side tires like everybody else. You can see one of the crew members up there squirting a little bit of ether down into the carburetor. Apparently, the car died as it came in, or either ran out of gas and the caution is on the track.
We have a yellow, and we do not know right offhand why we have such, but it's certainly an advantage for those who have not pitted, namely Terry Labonte. Perhaps the quirk of the yellow flag is going to mean a decided advantage for Terry Labonte. As the yellow has come out, Labonte has not made a pit stop, and Darrell Waltrip had.
And Waltrip right now is 1 lap behind Labonte. Now, Waltrip will get back in the lead lap as Labonte comes into the pits, but a tremendous break, as you say, for Labonte. Allison had not made his stop. Neither had Benny Parsons or Harry Gantz, so it's a good break for all of those, as you mentioned, who had not made a pit stop. This is going to change the complexion of this race.
It's been a tremendous year for Terry Labonte. As we indicated, he has not won a race this year. But listen to this. 4th at Daytona, 5th at Richmond, 4th at Bristol, 8th at Atlanta, 2nd at Rockingham, and 6th at Darlington. And Terry Labonte could be in a very good position here this afternoon to walk off with a victory at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Here is Darrell Waltrip back into the pit area, Ned.
Yes, he'll come in for a change of left side tires now, taking advantage of this caution period. All of them will change all 4 tires now. They might do it at 2 different times. Come in, change 2, and then go back out and change the others. Labonte is coming back into the pits for that very reason. So Waltrip, now knowing that he really has to run hard the rest of the afternoon to make up what that caution is going to cost him. Here's Labonte back in for this lap.
Well, we do not yet know why we have a yellow, but we do, and we'll try to find that information for you and have it when we come back. North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, at the Northwestern Bank 400. Back to racing at North Wilkesboro, and Terry Labonte is being shown as the leader. Here he is in traffic now. Waltrip and Earnhardt are ahead of him on the racetrack, but apparently it is Terry Labonte who is the leader of this race, and he is the leader because of a yellow that came out before he had made his pit stop. Waltrip and Earnhardt running in front of him, but they are almost a lap down to Labonte. Second place belongs to Benny Parsons. third, Ricky Rudd. Fourth place belongs to the number 15 of Dale Earnhardt.
And here's trouble on the front straightaway. Tim Richmond has spun to the inside guardrail, and you can see his car resting against the guardrail. He's trying to get it to going again. You can see him in there shifting the gears. Now he's decided to go backwards. He didn't want to go forwards too well. Now he's going to try it the other way. He gets it in the forward gear. So Tim Richmond tangling as he came off of the fourth turn. There was heavy traffic in there. And this will be the break now for Darrell Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt, as they'll be able to come around to the back of the pack and make up that lap they lost. That Waltrip was in the lead lap, as Bob pointed out. He was almost a lap down, but now he will get to come all the way around and catch up to the pack.
The reason for the yellow just a few minutes ago, there was a spectator in the infield who became ill, possibly a heart attack, and they had to take that individual across the racetrack in the ambulance. So that's the reason why we had the yellow a few laps ago. Now this yellow is because of the Tim Richmond accident, and the pace car picks up the leader. Waltrip and Earnhardt were ahead of the leader, so they go back on the lead lap, and we are set up for a tremendous finish of this race. The cars obviously will not have to stop again. We have completed 302 laps. We've got 98 to go. And this should be a dash to the finish, as Darrell Waltrip has demonstrated throughout the afternoon having the fastest car. But he'll be chasing now Terry Labonte, who is shown as the leader. We'll take this break and resume our coverage in a moment. We're covering the Northwestern Bank 400 for you from North. Still under yellow, and the pace car still out on the track. Will take at least one more lap before we go back to racing. Terry Labonte lined up right behind the pace car, along with Richard Petty, who has dropped off of this lead lap because of an early pit stop. We've completed 304 laps. 4 leaders, 6 lead changes, and 5 cautions, and only 2 caution periods of really any significance. Ron Bouchard with slight wall contact and 3. Really, Tim Richmond, who's most recently brought out the yellow, he had the hardest contact with the retaining wall down on the inside here at the end of the straightaway, but he is in the pit area right now and receiving service on that car, but I think he'll probably be able to get back in competition.
Yes, I think he will. He's been in a couple of times. Bob, they trying to make repairs on that. The green flag's coming out, so he goes back out. So we're back to racing again.
All right, and the green comes out. Terry Labonte leads them down the straightaway with Benny Parsons right behind him. Darrell Waltrip is third, and Dale Earnhardt is fourth. Running in 5th position, a lap down would be Richard Petty. Then 6th, Bobby Allison. 7th, Harry Gant. 8th, Morgan Shepherd. 9th, Ricky Rudd. And 10th would be Tim Richmond, but I imagine he dropped off the 10th place because of that incident here on the main straightaway just a couple of laps ago.
Bob, I think we should point out to the fans that Richard Petty, of course, as you mentioned, had made the pit stop under the green. He got a lap behind. So did Harry Gant. And, of course, Waltrip and Earnhardt had, but they got their laps back just as a result of this last caution that came out. So that's why we're not seeing those cars up there on the leaderboard.
Terry Labonte in the Stacy Chevy is showing the way with Richard Petty right behind him on the racetrack, but Parsons is in 2nd position and Waltrip in 3rd. We have less than 100 laps to go, and at this point in the race, the drivers begin to feel the fatigue. The racetrack gets a little bit slippery, and the excitement sets in for the finish, and it should be a tremendous finish. We'll be watching Darrell Waltrip and Benny Parsons and Dale Earnhardt all try to take the lead away from Terry Labonte.
I think this is the best field of cars that I've ever seen here at North Wilkesboro. Of course, it's just typical of the kind of competition that we see on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit this year. Right now, there are 4 cars in the lead lap, Bob, and I'm sure that the fans are wondering why or how Waltrip and Earnhardt got back up there so quickly when they were scheduled to go around to the tail end of the pack. Well, the NASCAR rules, the lead cars, those that are in the lead lap, can go up on the outside on a restart, and the lap cars go down on the inside. That permitted them to move right up on the back bumpers of Benny Parsons, who is running 2nd, and Terry Labonte. So Labonte is the leader. 2nd is Benny Parsons. 3rd is Darrell Waltrip, and 4th is Dale Earnhardt. Those cars are in the lead lap. In 5th place, 1 lap back is Richard Petty. In 6th place, 1 lap back is Bobby Allison. 7th is Harry Gant. He's also a lap down. 8th is Morgan Shepherd. 9th is Ricky Rudd. And in 10th place is the car number 2, Tim Richmond. I don't think Tim lost a lap during that little deal there. He was able to get the car back out on the track and then came back into the pits and stayed within that lap. He's 1 lap down.
And then the attrition rate hasn't been all that great here this afternoon either. I count unofficially 24 cars still on the racetrack, so only 6 have dropped out of the competition.
Yes, and it's amazing, especially at the speeds that they're running here this afternoon. They're really turning those engines some RPMs. As we see Darrell Waltrip now trying to make a move on Benny Parsons. He gets a fender up alongside him as we look back at Terry Labonte, who has pulled away, and he watches that battle for second place in his rear view mirror, knowing that Waltrip still is the man that he's got to beat here this afternoon. But Labonte, now that he has that lead, he has that 5 bonus points that we talked about, but now we'll see. Was he holding something back for the end of this race? Waltrip has now moved around to car number 28 of Benny Parsons. You can see he's got a car length on him as Parsons moves in closer. It's going to turn 3, but we'll see if Waltrip can chase down that car number 44 that's been following him all afternoon.
Darrell Waltrip was able to move by Benny Parsons in turn number 4 a lap and a half ago. So Waltrip now in second position and setting his sights on the leader, Terry Labonte. As we watch him come off turn number 4, we'll be able to see whether or not Waltrip is able to close the distance down the straightaway, as he was able to put some distance between himself and Terry Labonte when the positions were reversed earlier in the race. It's been a race that's been pretty much dominated by Darrell Waltrip, but not right now. Terry Labonte is the leader with Waltrip running second, and Benny Parsons is in third position. Fourth place on the racetrack is Richard Petty, but it looks like that Richard, unless something drastic happens, is not going to keep that string alive that has put him in either victory lane or second position in the last 12 Northwestern Bank 400s. A tremendous record. Previous race winners, Bobby Allison has won this race twice. Darrell has won it once, and Cale Yarborough has won this race twice. Of course, Cale not competing on the short tracks.
Richard was certainly running fast enough, Bob, to maintain that record, but he was one of those drivers that had made the pit stop under the green, and he got a lap behind. There's just not a whole lot that he can do about that. Here is Harry Gann in the 33 car, and Bobby Allison in 88. They're battling for position. They took as they come over the turn. He just gave him a little love tap there, I guess you'd say.
Sixth position here between these two green race cars, green and white. Harry Gant and Bobby Allison. And a few years ago, was green unlucky when you were racing that?
Well, I don't know if it's unlucky or not, but you certainly didn't see any green race cars on the racetrack. It was a superstition among the drivers back in that era, but it has changed so drastically over the years. Of course, Darrell Waltrip won the Winston Cup Championship last year driving a green car, so they don't seem to think too much about it. And it was always amazing that, we start the race with a green flag, and it hung out in front of you all day long, and then after the race, they paid you off in green money, but it still was a superstition.
Again, this is the battle for sixth place, Harry Gant and Bobby Allison. I think we have the sponsors to thank for getting rid of this green superstition, because naturally they like to carry their colors on the race cars, and Skoal and Gatorade and several of the others have green colors, and that's the reason why we see green race cars.
Yes.
All right, we'll take another break here and resume our coverage. We have completed 322 laps, so just a few more to go before we have a winner in this event.
Formula One.
Back at North Wilkesboro, the leader is Terry Labonte in the number 44 Chevy. Right behind him, Darrell Waltrip and the number 11 Mountain Dew Buick. And in third position at this point is the number 28 car of Benny Parsons. But the battle here is a good one for the lead, as Darrell Waltrip now has closed right in on the back bumper of Terry Labonte. Labonte fighting that car coming off of turn number 4, completing lap number 330. The attrition in the race, we have alluded to it a little bit earlier, but so far these cars out of the race: Slick Johnson, Dave Marcus, Butch Lindley, Bob Shack, Lenny Pond, and Brad Teague. Only those 6, make that 7, have dropped out of competition. The most recent, Mark Martin, to drop out of the race, and he is with Ron Kendrick right now.
Mark, you started the car in the 4th starting position. This is not a good place to be at this time in the race. What happened with it?
Well, first of all, we broke an axle, and I could see right away that this wasn't going to be my day. We fixed the axle and was going to get back out and pull out the best finish that we could out of it. We're still learning. My new crew's still learning, and I'm still learning. We're learning about the race car and these type of race cars. And so we wanted the experience. So we went back out and ran a while, and then we had more trouble in the rear end. So, all I can say is we're going to keep it on until we can lick this bad luck spell.
Real quickly, how are the track conditions? It's getting late in the race.
They're not, the track's fine. A little bit slippery, but they always get that way. The track's in good shape, and it ought to be a really good race. I just wish I was in it.
Well, we wish you were too. Mark Martin out of competition from Roseneck.
Well, I think that young man has a very bright, promising future in Grand National racing. He was a 3-time ASA champion, competed in a few races last year, but this year is in the battle for the Rookie of the Year status.
And talk about a battle.
Yes.
Look up front there as Darrell Waltrip tries to move on the inside of Terry Labonte.
And Darrell Waltrip using the inside groove off of the 4th turn, and will, oh boy, it was a dead heat coming down here across the starting line. They were side by side. Now Labonte gets a little bit out of shape high on the racetrack and loses the lead to Waltrip. They'll go into turn 3 side by side with Labonte in the high groove and Waltrip in the low groove. Now Terry lets him go by, and Darrell Waltrip takes over the lead once again. So on this lap, it is Darrell Waltrip being shown as leader, Labonte in second position. Does that mean, Ned, that Waltrip has indeed established himself as the fastest car on the track and now will be able to hold the lead?
Yes, I believe that now, Bob, because I think Labonte is late enough in the race that if he had it, that he would have stayed out front and would have tried to pull away at this point of the race. Of course, he'll try to stay as close as we can and take advantage of any situation that might come up. And see Waltrip moving on the inside of Tim Richmond, who has been back out there in the running, but his car not running quite as well now as it did before he spun down the front straightaway.
There's considerable damage to that Tim Richmond car, but nevertheless, he's still out there in competition, being lapped, however, by the leader, Darrell Waltrip, as Waltrip moves into turns 1 and 2 on the inside, and Terry Labonte looking also to get around the Tim Richmond car. Now into turn number 3, it is Darrell Waltrip going around the 70 Pontiac driven by J.T. McDuffie. This will complete lap number 339, so we have 61 laps to go in this race.
Well, Waltrip is beginning to pull away a little bit here now. We heard Junior Johnson say earlier that they had made an adjustment on the chassis of that car, and they were, that huddle that we saw he and his crew members in earlier in the race, they were trying to decide did they need to do a little bit more later in the race. We saw them make that pit stop, but we did not see if they were able, if they did indeed, to make another chassis adjustment, but it does look like right now that he's running faster than he's run all day long.
By the way, we will be back here at Wilkesboro, North Carolina for another Winston Cup Grand National race later this year. We will also return to the Richmond, Virginia Speedway that we had a race a few weeks ago. And we also will be covering several other Grand National races this year, including Talladega in 2 weeks. When we return here in the fall, this race will be called the Holly Farms 400, and we will be looking forward to that race. It was won last year by Darrell Waltrip, who is about to, or appears to be on his way to winning this Northwestern Bank 400 here this afternoon. So we look forward to another race here on this tremendous 5/8-mile racetrack. Darrell Waltrip continues to lead with Terry Labonte right behind him, and we have 59 laps to go. Back with our live coverage at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Darrell Waltrip is leading this race. Second position belongs to Terry Labonte at 44. Third position, Benny Parsons running in 4th place. Dale Earnhardt. 5th is Richard Petty, a lap down. 6th, Harry Gant. 7th, Bobby Allison. Running in 8th place, Morgan Shepherd. 9th is Ricky Rudd as we watch this 5th and 6th place battle. 2 laps down, and 10th position is Neil Bonnet, and the 11th position, also 2 laps down, Richmond.
A good battle going on for the 5th and 6th place. Petty is currently running in 5th place, but Gant has been battling for several laps. And look at the 2 distinct lines that take on the racetrack. It looked like Gant was going right out of the racetrack. But he took the high line there. Petty has moved down. Earlier, he was running the high groove, but he's moved down low, and Gant's still trying to run high, just trying to find a way to get around the old pro, Richard Petty.
Boy, I thought sure he was headed for the wall there in the first turn, but just using that high groove and staying right on Richard Petty here, maintaining that 6th position. Richard Petty 5th, and Harry Gant running 6th. Darrell Waltrip, as we look down in front of us, moves by the straightaway and completes another lap. The interval between 1st and 2nd place, and there was a car between the two, is about a half a straightaway. So, Ned, I think that you are right. He has certainly, Waltrip has, proven himself to be the man to beat here this afternoon. He has led most of the way, except for a brief period when Terry Labonte got into the lead a few laps ago because of a yellow that came out before Labonte had made his pit stop. But another quick yellow, and Waltrip was able to regain the lap.
Here he is now trying to move around Ricky Rudd in the Piedmont Airlines car. You know, one thing that Walter probably has in the back of his mind, Bob, and a short track is a good place to rack up a lot of lead laps. There is some good money up this year by the Gillette Actra people who are paying, I think it's like $20,000 at the end of the year, the driver who wins the most, who leads the most laps during the season. We mentioned earlier in our telecast that Dale Earnhardt has led more laps than any other driver coming into this race, but as many as Waltrip has led here this afternoon, that's going to put him right up there in the thick of the battle with Earnhardt, and it could mean big bucks for him at the end of the season.
Here's a good battle between Bobby Allison and Morgan Shepherd for 8th position. Shepherd goes to the high side of the racetrack in an effort to get around Allison. Off of turn number 4, these two cars are side by side for 8th. Into turn number 1, Morgan Shepherd with the high side and Bobby Allison low. Good battle here for 8th position late in this race. Down the backstretch, they are side by side. Shepherd moves ahead of Allison going into turn number 3, but he has the high groove, and Allison, as they come off of the 4th turn, will pull right alongside again. Great racing. 8th position battle between Bobby Allison and Morgan Shepherd. Allison in the number 88 Monte Carlo Chevrolet, and Morgan Shepherd in the number 98 Levi Garrett Buick. Now Shepherd establishes himself in 7th position for the moment, but these two cars still running side by side on the racetrack. We mentioned the lap leaders so far this year. Dale Earnhardt, as you indicated, Ned, has led more than anybody else, 628 laps. Darrell Waltrip, 2nd position in lap leaders. Bobby Allison has led 3rd most, Neil Bonnet, and then Benny Parsons.
Allison is not giving up that 6th position very easy. He's making Shepherd work for everything he's getting. Now Allison had a nose out in front that time as they came across the start-finish line. So he's making him work for it.
This is a great battle here. Bobby Allison, the veteran of all types of racing, as a matter of fact. I think you pointed out earlier that Bobby Allison will go just about any place in the country that there's a race, whether it's a 1/5 of a mile track. And we covered him a couple of years ago driving on the 5th mile oval at the Indianapolis Speedrome in a regular Friday night program. But he is just as capable here on the super speedways or on the short tracks of Grand National racing. On the other hand, Morgan Shepherd is also a veteran of especially the short track competitions, and he is giving Bobby Allison all he can handle here in the late stages of this race with 39 laps to go. Allison and Shepherd battling side by side, neither wanting to give up that 7th position.
Well, Allison moves back in front now. He has chosen to stick to the low groove. Now Shepherd's going to try him on the inside. He said, well, if he can run that good down there and pass me back, let me try it. But he couldn't quite do it that time.
And again, it appears that they came very close to touching as they came off of that 4th turn and moved out onto the straightaway. Bobby Allison running in 7th position at this time with Morgan Shepherd in 8th. Well, the race now is 363 laps old, and Darrell Waltrip is continuing to lead this event, but again, it is Terry Labonte who is still certainly not out of striking distance, although there is maybe 8 or 10 car lengths between the leader and the number 44 of Labonte, and a car in between. Terry Labonte has certainly demonstrated this afternoon that he has the 2nd fastest car on the racetrack. Here he is in turn number 3, trying to go around Brad Teague, who is one of the rookie contenders this year. Brad is still out there in competition, and Terry Labonte moving around. Meanwhile, it's Waltrip that goes to the inside and putting a lap on Neil Bonnet, who is unofficially running in 10th position at this time. Bobby Hillin, meanwhile, in the number 8 car, is continuing to display a good first race here. Bobby, of course, 17 years old, and Ned has driven a fairly steady race. He has not been competitive, but he's gaining a lot of experience.
Yes, he is, and he has been very smooth out there as we've watched him run around here. This is a tough racetrack to drive, and for a young fellow to come in here and do as well as he has today, it's very commendable of the fellow. Harry Hyde, who's working on that car, says that he'll make a race driver, and I'll tell you, starting at this young age and getting this kind of experience can be good for you.
The fans here at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, beginning to stand now as they anticipate the final few laps of this race. And as we indicated earlier, there are lots of Darrell Waltrip fans here, but on the other hand, there are lots of race fans who don't particularly care for Darrell Waltrip. And we set up for a tremendous finish here and see whether or not Darrell can walk off with a victory this afternoon, as he has virtually dominated this competition.
Of course, we're watching Labonte move up on a couple of lap cars. Jimmy Means and Neil Bonnet there just in front of him. You mentioned Brad Teague a moment ago. We saw there's a battle for third and fourth between Dale Earnhardt. He's moved right up on Benny Parsons, who is running the car number 28. He's running in the third position, Earnhardt running in fourth. But it's hard to say, you mentioned Brad Teague. You know, we saw that car earlier that had caught on fire, but they got him back out there, and I suspect one reason that they worked so hard to get that car back out there is because Mark Martin, who is leading the point standing for the rookie division, had fallen out of the race, so now he'll be able to finish in front of Martin and pick up some extra points on him.
Mark Martin with 55 rookie points, Brad Teague with 21, and as you indicated, he's gaining some here this afternoon. Well, we have 31 laps to go with Darrell Waltrip and Terry Labonte still running first and second. Back with more coverage after this.
Michelob brings you the 7-day weekend. Boy meets girl style. Meeting over a Michelob can show that...
24 laps to go. Darrell Waltrip first. Terry Labonte second. Benny Parsons is third. Running in fourth position is Dale Earnhardt. Those cars on the lead lap. A lap down in fifth. Richard Petty. Sixth place. Harry Gant. Seventh, Bobby Allison, and eighth is Morgan Shepherd. And this is the battle for third. Benny Parsons and Dale Earnhardt, and this by far is the best battle on the racetrack at this point. And Dale Earnhardt moves to the inside of Parsons. Now the straightaway, and it appears that Dale Earnhardt is going to move into third, although Benny Parsons won't have any of that. But Earnhardt is able to stay around Benny Parsons, and Dale Earnhardt is now being shown in third position. Nice move there by Dale.
Yes, it was. He'd been working on him for about 10 laps, and he finally got him in the position that he needed, was able to stick down on the inside and move right around Benny. But Benny will be trying to get that position back, as we see Tim Richmond in the picture there, too. Tim's a couple of laps down in that battered car number 2 that he scraped the wall with here a little bit earlier today. The car's running good now. It had slowed down there for a little while, but he's got the handle back on it now, and it's running very good. But close battle there for the third and fourth position. Just a few moments ago, I looked out the corner of my eye. Bobby Allison, who is running, about the 7th or 8th position right now, he almost lost it coming off of the second turn. And a lesser experienced driver might have brought out our 6th caution of the day, but he gathered it back in, ran slow for a lap or 2, and now he has it back under control, running his regular speed.
Lake Speed has been in and out of the pit area all day. His car now rests in the pit area, and he is with Ron Kendrick.
What's the problem with the car? Why I think we had a broken valve spring in the engine and developed a miss there. We were running really, really well for a while, and all of a sudden the motor started overheating a little bit at first, and then it started picking up a definite miss, and that's what put us out of the race. Okay, Lake, thanks very much. Lake Speed out of competition here at Wilkesboro.
Lake Speed is a former go-kart champion. His performance so far this year on the Winston Cup Trail, he was 41st at Daytona, 19th at Richmond. Did not drive at Bristol. Finished 33rd at Atlanta, 34th at Rockingham, and 17th in Darlington. Lake Speed, who has picked up a sponsor on that car, Yazoo Mowers, in the past few weeks. That is the Buick Lake Speed hailing from Jackson, Mississippi. Darrell Waltrip is still leading this event as we have 17 laps to go now. We're nearing the finish of this event. And Darrell Waltrip, it looks like, is going to come home with his 3rd victory of the year this year on the Winston Grand National Trail. 17 laps to go.
He's certainly looking, his chances looking better and better all the time, Bob. And the car is still handling amazingly well. He can stick right down on the inside of the racetrack, but when he gets in traffic, if he needs to go high, he can do that also. And I'll tell you, that it's tough to get a car working that well. There's the man responsible for it, Junior Johnson. Hall of Fame member himself. In fact, I had the privilege of being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1972 when Junior was inducted into the Hall, and he is probably the most knowledgeable man of a race car in stock car racing today.
We have had 5 yellow periods. The first came out when Dale Earnhardt spun early in the race. There was a tangle between Lake Speed and Butch Lindley that brought out the second yellow. The third one involved Ron Bouchard, who spun and bumped the wall out in turn number 3. Our fourth yellow was for the ambulance who crossed the track from the infield. And then Tim Richmond also brought out a caution period when he lost control, spun and hit the wall on the inside of the racetrack. And he, however, able to continue in the battle. This is the 5th place battle between Richard Petty and
that car that just they're going by, Jody Ridley, almost got into the wall. You can see him coming slow around the track. He's had some problems with the right front on the car. I think he's been having some brake problems there, but he almost got it into the wall. But that battle, as you mentioned, between Richard Petty and Harry Gant continues for the 5th position as Ridley brings his car into the pits. There's Gant running on the back bumper of Richard Petty. He's tried him high and low, but he just has not been able to get around him.
Jody Ridley into the pit area. Jody, 39 years old, from Chatsworth, Georgia, driving the J.D. Stacy Ford, number 90. We're going to work on that car while these two stay out there and do battle for 5th position. Richard Petty and Harry Gant. Both of these cars are a lap down to the leaders, Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, Dale Earnhardt, and Benny Parsons. 10 laps to go in this event. 10 laps to go, and again, we are set up for a tremendous finish. Darrell Waltrip and Terry Labonte, could either one win this race, and we'll be back to see who is the champion in a moment. This is ESPN's live coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400. We have 6 laps to go. Waltrip, Labonte, and Earnhardt are all on the same lap, and Terry Labonte is within striking distance now. Waltrip has about a quarter of a straightaway lead, but Darrell Waltrip is coming up on race traffic that could very definitely play a part in how this race ends. He has about 6 cars ahead of him that he's going to have to maneuver around in order to walk off with the victory here as Terry Labonte sits back and watches Darrell work his way through the traffic. Here is Waltrip taking to the high side and passing Bobby Hillen off of turn number 4. The next car he'll have to contend with is the number 70 of J.D. McDuffie. Darrell Waltrip appears on his way to victory, but anything can happen in the last few laps. We've got 3.5 laps to go. Terry Labonte brings the car off of the second turn and still definitely within striking distance. Let's see how this thing ends. Waltrip off the... Oh, we have a problem in turn number 3. It involves our second-place car, Terry Labonte, and Bobby Allison. Labonte's car smoking badly as they have sheet metal rubbing against tire. Down the main straightaway, the yellow is out. There is Labonte in turn number 1, having a very difficult time steering that car because the sheet metal is definitely rubbing against the tire on the right front of the car.
A tough break for the young fellow who had driven a magnificent race here this afternoon, but something happened. Bobby Allison lost his car going into the turn, and Labonte hit him and hit the wall on the outside. You can see the damage. The tire is flat. He'll stay out on the racetrack, though, and because they can't pass him. Benny Parsons is right behind him. I think Dale Earnhardt has already gotten around him, but he'll stay out for the checkered flag, I'm sure, because the white flag will be coming up the next lap as Darrell Waltrip gets the white flag as we watch Labonte on the backstretch. But under caution, they're not permitted to pass another car. And although we see some cars passing Labonte there, but...
And so we will end this race under the caution, and Darrell Waltrip will be the winner. The field is being given the white flag right now. Terry Labonte staying out there, a tremendous disappointment for this young man who has driven a tremendous race here this afternoon, but had problems with 3 laps to go. Darrell Waltrip behind the pace car, going at about 40 miles an hour, comes off of the 4th turn and receives the checkered flag from Harold Kinder, and Darrell Waltrip has won the Northwestern Bank 400 from North Wilkesboro. Darrell Waltrip is the champion. He has won his 3rd race of the year on the Winston Cup Trail. And I believe that Dale Earnhardt is going to finish in 2nd position. And
yes, he was able to get around Labonte before the caution came out. Now, Parsons passed Labonte after the caution came out, so we'll see what the ruling is on that. But it was a good break for Earnhardt, a very tough break for Terry Labonte, as he was a victim of circumstances. Let's see what did happen.
Yeah, it happened up in turn number 3 as the cars were battling side by side.
Okay, Labonte tried to move on the inside of Bobby Allison, and apparently his left wheel clipped that inside curbing, got him into Allison, and then it slammed. Car number 44, Labonte into the outside wall. Allison did a complete 360, sitting right in the middle of the racetrack, but he was able to come on around as we see the other cars moving around to Bobby Allison there, but that brought out the caution that caused it to end under caution here today, and Darrell Waltrip is headed for victory lane. As we see Terry Labonte now he's pulled into the pits, he'll be coming out of his car as he gets down where he wants to go, and there's Waltrip pulling into victory lane.
For the 3rd time this year, Darrell Waltrip visits victory lane, and as he gets out of the car and we get in position to talk to him, we'll be back for that interview in a moment as we continue our coverage from North Wilkesboro. Darrell Waltrip, the winner here this afternoon. Finished for the day. But it doesn't.
Very happy Darrell Waltrip and the Mountain Dew crew here in victory lane after winning the Northwestern Bank 400 at Wilkesboro. Darrell, super run.
Is this going all over the world, all over the country?
Every place you need to go.
You mean this is better than the wide world of sports?
Much better.
I've got a lot of people I want to say hi to and thank. First, I want to thank the good Lord for a safe race. And I want to say hi to Joe Block, the Vice President of Marketing for Mountain Dew and Pepsi-Cola, and all the people over at Darwall Incorporated today, and good friend Flip Hood and Robert G.
Now let's talk about the race.
And my mom and dad and my mother and father. And it was a heck of a good race. we really had a good day, and everything just went our way. One time they had a caution right after we pitted, and Junior said a guy had a heart attack, and I said, I know, it's me. So I was really worried at that point because I knew I had my hands full with Labonte and happened to make up a lap. I didn't know if I could do it or not, but I was willing to try, and then we got a quick caution, and everything worked out great. I hope the fella that had the heart attack's all right.
Awful lot of fender banging going on out there today. Were you involved in any of that?
Not a one. I don't think I got a nick on my car anywhere. I'm tickled to death after 2 bad weeks.
Okay, Darrell, congratulations on your win.
I'd like to thank Junior and all the crew, too. They just did a super job today, Jeff and everybody that works on the car, Mike, and everybody back to the shop.
All right, Darrell Waltrip, the victor in the Northwestern Bank 400 here at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
And Doug.
And Darrell Waltrip.
Am I done yet?
Darrell Waltrip, a very happy individual in victory lane, as he pretty much dominated this race, and as he indicated, lost the lead a couple of times, but I'll tell you, without doubt, the Mountain Dew Buick was the fastest car on the racetrack. Well, we'll have more interviews and post-race thoughts here as we wrap up our coverage with Darrell Waltrip, the winner here at North Wilkesboro. Our officials have given us the race summary. At the end of the event, we had 5 leaders, 9 lead changes, and 6 cautions. And the winner, Darrell Waltrip. 2nd position, Dale Earnhardt. NASCAR officials have indicated that Benny Parsons finishes in 3rd position, Terry Labonte 4th, Richard 5th, and Harry Gant in 6th position. So it's going to tighten up the points battle, Ned, because Labonte finishes 4th. Waltrip wins the race.
Yes, Waltrip will gain some points on him. I think he was in 4th place coming into this race, so that will help him. And as a result of winning or leading the most laps, that'll give him another 5-point bonus. Both of them got the 5-point bonus for leading the race at one point or another. So it will tighten up the point battle. I think we're going to see a tremendous battle all the way down to the wire. We see Labonte's car and just a throng of fans gathered around. He had to be a sentimental favorite here today after the race that he ran, and then to have the problems that he had right there at the end as he and Bobby Allison tangled with just a couple or 3 laps to go, and of course jammed him into the wall and cut his right front tire down, and that's what caused the race to go under caution and to end under caution.
Well, it's definitely a disappointment, but Terry Labonte continues his good string as he has finished no lower than 8th this year and unofficially 4th here at North Wilkesboro. We'll have more post-race activity and possibly some interviews from Ron Kendrick in the pit area when we return. Back in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, with a victory, the Darrell Waltrip Mountain Dew crew continues in victory. Disappointment, although in the Terry Labonte pit, Ron Kendrick, who has done a fine job covering the pit activity for us today, is with Terry Labonte.
We have with us a very disgusted Terry Labonte, running so well here at North Wilkesboro. Terry, just what happened?
Well, you know, 3 or 4 laps ago, we caught Bobby Allison and lapped him, and Darrell went by him, and I caught him, and he didn't move over, so I just went to the inside to pass him down the back straightaway. And I got up, you know, about halfway by him going in the turn, and he cut me off, and he spun, and I hit the wall. It's just one of them deals, I guess.
You did a heck of a job driving even after you had the tire problem there after that. Tough to do that, wasn't it?
Well, you know, we only had 2 or 3 laps to go, and you know, the only thing we had to do, we were still running second, and you can't pass under the caution, so we made it back to the line, and the race, you know, finished under the caution, so that's all we could do.
To find you, we found you here in front of the NASCAR trailer with Jake Eller. Is there some type of protest, perhaps?
Well, they said we finished 4th, but you know, you can't pass caution, so that meant we should have finished second. You know, I'm sure it's just a little mix-up, and we'll get it straightened out.
Okay, Terry, thanks for talking to us. Back to Bob in the booth.
Well, it has to be very difficult for Terry to talk with us, because I'm sure he is very disappointed and perhaps a little disgusted at what happened.
Well, yes, certainly you hate to see your racer torn up, and I think he realizes he did not have a shot at winning the race at that point, because Waltrip had pulled far enough away.
Well, we'll look at the top finishers here, and we certainly do want to extend our thanks for great hospitality here in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. The racetrack people have just been tremendous to us. We thank them. We'll be back here later for a race. We'll also be covering, of course, the Talladega race for you in 2 weeks. For Ned Jarrett and Ron Kendrick, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone, from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Yes,